How do you do, everyone? My name is... and this is the Bloody Disgusting Network. The succeeding show will fill you with dread. Have a good time.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast from Consequence of Sound. This is your good friend, and at least for the round of this episode's the leader, because I'm stuttering Randall Colburn.
You did a pretty good job there without the stutters, though.
Yeah, I forgot to do it.
You're old Randall Colburn.
Yeah, I choose not to do it again. Was that good? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do stutters. It seems wrong.
It is.
Okay, I apologize for that. And I may be your fearless leader, but I don't get it right all the time. So we're here, we're back, and we're ready to talk about it. Before we do it, though, I just want to take a moment. I usually do this at the end of the episode, but I think sometimes we have better success when I do it now. And that's to say, while you're fresh, your ears are ready, please leave us a review on iTunes. Just take a moment. Just pause it right now. Go leave us a review, 5-star review. If you're going to give us anything less than 5, then don't do it. No. Be honest. This is how we run things in Stutter.
Honest, right?
And Stutter and Randall's Losers Club. No, please leave us a review. We really appreciate it. And go like us on social media platforms if you haven't already. Our content, I just think it's A+.
I think it's A+. Personally, I would give it 5 stars.
I would give it 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. So sure. I think our social game is on point. Mm-hmm. And I emphasize this on many episodes. Fresh content on every social media platform.
Quality, quantity, the whole
You're
thing.
not just getting cut and paste.
No.
You got different losers posting different things on different platforms, different perspectives, different voices. It's truly a wealth of content.
If you just want facts, go to Wikipedia.
Yeah, you can go to Wikipedia. We don't do facts. We don't traffic in facts. We lie, cheat, steal. We lie, cheat, steal. We start dialogues.
That's part of this crew?
Yes. We're a little bit edgier than the Losers Club of yore.
When's the nice fight when we tie our hands together? Fight it out. I'm ready.
So my name is Stutter and Randall Colburn. I'm a senior writer at Consequence of Sound. And this is a Consequence of Sound podcast, which is why that is relevant. Mm-hmm. And who is sitting across from me?
This is Aisha, Yellow Peeper Bloomers in Hollywood. Oh shit, what's my last name? Gadsden.
That's what your last name is.
Oh, have I not said it
before?
before?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, damn.
And so Aisha, you joined us for the first time last week. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But you're with us for the rest of this. You're riding it out.
Yes, I'm sad I have to miss the adaptations.
Yes, but this is your first time reading the book.
Yes,
which is very exciting.
Totally have no idea what's
going on. That's the thing, is Aisha's still in progress with it, and I think the rest of us on this episode have all read it, so Aisha's kind of got that fresh eyes perspective, which I think is very vital when we're discussing these things. And who is sitting next to Aisha?
Justin, Juniper Hill, Justin. Ooh, twice with the Justin. I got excited.
Alliteration.
We'll give myself the last name of Gerber, also a contributor at Consequence of Sound, and I've read this book a couple times in the past, but I'm kind of reading it as the parts go on. So I just started part 5.
Nice.
So yeah, these are all relatively fresh as well for me.
It's fresh. And then who is joining us long distance?
This is Dan Moose Sadler.
Yes.
I don't know. I wanted to pick a really insubstantial character.
I love Moose. Who's the other character? Pete Gordon or something?
Pete Gordon. Yeah, they are actually kind of interesting characters. I mean, they're not in the book very long.
Well, that's one of the things I love about this is that there's like auxiliary bullies, just like there was auxiliary losers. That who's that kid who like tried to join and they were just like, he's not part of this.
Oh, you know what? I don't have him in my notes here, but I want to make a big deal about him from the earlier parts. I love that. Yeah. He reminded me of the guy who replaced John Travolta on Welcome Back, Kotter. Nobody knows who he is.
Did when they replaced him, because I used to watch Welcome Back, Kotter, but it's been a long time. He wasn't like the new Vinnie Barbarino.
No, he was like
he had a new name,
vanilla kind of country guy, blonde hair. I mean, you never saw the actor again. It was that tough.
Dan, how are you today?
I'm great. I just had my parents in town, and we had other family members in town last weekend. So it's been a full house at the Catberg household. What can I say? Much like one of my favorite shows from the 90s. And Justin's too, right? You love, or you like Fuller House better, right?
I will say I've seen 40 times as many episodes of Fuller House than I have Full House.
Wait a minute. Holy shit.
Yeah, here we go.
Listeners, this is
If you like our tangents, get ready.
This is a bombshell.
Yeah.
This is a bombshell. Here's the thing. Justin is one of the most fastidious TV watchers I know. This guy, no phones out while watching. He watches serious cinema, serious TV. Yet this man
serious people.
has watched every episode of Fuller House, the reboot on Netflix. And now I've just learned you weren't even a fan of the original?
Well, full disclosure, when you're watching the show Fuller House, I hope we're playing the music in the background. It's so incredible in its awfulness. Like, everything is a misstep.
Yeah.
It's incredible to watch it for, 22, 23 minutes at a time, and like the forced laugh tracks and the performances are kind of off. And then it's still somewhat like, I don't want to say, somewhat problematic at times. It's like, it just seems like it was literally just transport from 1992 to now. It's very weird.
It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
I couldn't get past it.
I'm a sadomasochist, so
That's wild.
That's what was my question.
I just can't believe that you weren't a fan of the original.
I'm like Paul
even.
Bettany and Da Vinci Code over here with the Fuller House episodes, babe.
Oh, is he? Oh, because he flagellated himself.
Thanks, Dan. Speaking of dated references, how's my Dennis Miller?
I was gonna say, well, there was a lot of dated references. You got Da Vinci Code references, and not even the book, which is timeless. You've got the movie. You've got the movie. You got a Paul Bettany reference.
Love Bettany. All right, anyway, sorry, but we digress.
We digress. Sorry,
you should definitely watch
Please
Fuller
don't
House
give
on
us a
Netflix.
1-star review because of our Fuller House tangent. We're ready to talk about it, baby.
Yeah.
Dan, it's glad to have you back. This is your first time back since the first episode.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've been able to be on the show a lot more than I have this year, and it's always great. I love hearing your guys' voices, and I love talking some Stephen King. So I'm glad to be here.
You sound like a celebrity guest.
Did your agent give you that script to read? Your PR rep?
It was very well put
Don't
together.
talk about your politics. Don't talk about your sex scandal. Just keep it positive.
Speaking of sex scandals, we've got a few in this section.
We sure do.
But we're not there yet. We're going to begin with, because we are on part 4 today, which is July of 1958, which is a pivotal month for the losers, I'd say.
If you're going by the real calendar, that's a little over 60 years ago.
Wow. I guess it stands to say that these losers would be very old if they were alive today.
I hope most of them are alive today.
I guess they'd be about King's age, right?
Yeah, they'd be about King's age. Yeah.
Mike Hanlon will outlive us all. I think.
It's true.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
So there's a lot of really iconic it moments that happen in this section. Like the stuff that I'd say that I really remember from, because with this book, it was always kind of I read it twice when I was young, and then I didn't read it for many, many years. And I'm like you, Justin, in that I'm probably about halfway through part 5 right now. And so I remember the ending in broad strokes, but not the nitty gritty of it. And it's been wild to kind of go back in and remember how it all exactly plays out. Because for so long, I only remembered sort of really pivotal moments, really broad, huge moments. And one of them, the smoke hole, I'd say probably is what resonated maybe more than anything weirdly for me. And we're going to get to that a little bit later. But this begins with the apocalyptic rock fight. And this is, I think, a really, and the way we're doing this, listeners, if you've listened to our last couple episodes, we're kind of using our heroes and villains section, which we've just entered into, to also use a sort of a synopsis, a recap of what we're discussing today, but also to talk about how the characters are evolving, because we're learning so much about them as we go on through each one. And we actually do meet some crazy characters this time around.
I don't know if Patrick Hockstetter is crazy.
I guess we should give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah,
No.
He's just a misunderstood kid.
He's a little kid.
And so that's the thing, is he is a little kid, which is really weird. But I guess like this section, especially the apocalyptic rock fight, is interesting because when I was talking to a good friend of mine who is a fan of the book, and we were talking about the 2017 film, and I was saying, overall I really like it, and she was like, she's like, just what they really fucked up for me was the rock fight.
Yeah.
And she's like, because it's such a big deal in the book, and I wasn't at the rock fight when she told me that by the time I'd read it. And I was actually on my way to Mexico. I was reading it on the plane, and I was reading the rock fight, and I turned to my wife and I just said, it's like, this thing is so, like, the way it's written, the stakes of it are so high, and it resonates like so powerfully, the way this whole section is written, that I totally understood that. She had reread it recently, and and I remember thinking it was fine in the movie, but it's like it is almost impossible, I think, to capture the intensity of it on screen, because it's played out like a gunfight. Like in the book, it's so intense. Like there's actual real life and death stakes here, and it's also just this meeting, this kind of squaring off that you've been waiting for so long. So, what was the experience like reading this rock fight?
Well, I don't know about you, Aisha, but I'd seen the miniseries years ago, which I think they actually did a little bit of a better job when it comes to the rock fight. It's a little more gravitas.
I think so.
Emotion.
Yeah,
makes it a little more epic, I think. But it is hard to touch the way that this is written. Like you said, this is given the respect of like a battle scene in a war movie.
Yeah,
and it just shows where all the kids are at this point. Henry's mental state, the losers, finally becoming the losers club here too.
Yep.
This is when Mike officially becomes a loser.
And I think that's a really important part of it too, is that they make the Mike integration here work so well.
Yeah.
Because I remember I will say in the new movie, it's kind of just suddenly like Mike's there and he's with them, and it's
that one scuffle.
Yeah. And it's like, and then here, I think in the book, there's a meta sort of awareness to it, that because they get kind of into the next thing where Mike just shows up and he's not sure if he's going to be friends, like if they're going to want to hang out with him.
Well, there's a great line.
Yeah.
I can't remember who says it, but they're all like saying, I love you, Bev, I love you,
Yeah.
thanks for everything. And then I think, maybe it's Richie that says, I don't know you well enough to love you, but I love you anyway.
Yeah, Mike, and exactly that touches on that. And for me, I don't know if it felt. This is one of those things that's misery in both word processor of the God for me for King, is that like sometimes he has these like long drawn out like buildups that just bore me.
Yeah.
And then other times like this rock fight, like I know what's coming and I'm like I wanted to rush through the pages because like he was building that anticipation of like Mike, which I won't get into details now, basically Mike getting chased and then like everything that's leading them every step moment by moment to that point.
Yeah.
And them even just talking about like Mike and integrating him slowly into the system of like the whole experience from the rock fight to the smoke hole and onward. And and that's when you get to the part where he was like, I guess I love you too.
Yeah.
I don't really know you, but I guess we're all here and then King keeps reiterating that like completion of 7.
Yeah.
It happens so often. It's like, okay, stop beating me in the head with it.
Right.
But I like this scene.
Dan, what was it like to revisit the rock fight on this read of it?
You guys touched on it a little bit already, but I think it gives some insight into just how far Henry Bowers has fallen mentally.
Yeah.
Because, obviously the rock fight itself is a huge event and Mike joining and all of that. But the thing that struck me this time around was the fact that the other bullies are starting to sense just how crazy he's gotten and how obsessive he's gotten. And the fact that they don't feel quite comfortable venturing into this rock fight. They do anyway, of course, but that was like what I didn't register just as much as when I was a kid. Also, just because I had seen the miniseries, also the rock fight in the book is just so much more violent than it is in the movie. Like it's kind of crazy the wounds they're describing. But then again, I don't know, if you're throwing jagged pieces of gravel at each other as kids, you're gonna hurt each other like that.
Right.
Yeah, and Taisha's point about this sort of coincidental writing King does a lot in this book where he talks about fate and everything. I like it here. But by the end of the novel, I do get a little tired of like, we have to point out every time something is connected. He does that in The Stand a lot too.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Is Hank barking?
Yeah, hold on.
No, it's fine.
Natural. It's natural.
I'm just like, what is Hank's problem?
You're like a shotgun blast.
We got Cujo on our hands over here.
He probably found a squirrel or something like that. I'll mute it when I'm not talking.
No, it's all good. I think to Dan's point, I think we do actually get some shades of like Victor and Belch here that I find really interesting, because one of the things that I love character-wise here is that King draws the sharp distinction of Henry's descent sort of into madness by actually framing Belch and Victor in a very childlike sense, which I feel like he doesn't do too often. What I love here is that Victor and Belch, like they're excited to play with firecrackers.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a very genuine childlike kind of thing. Like, because he's like, oh, if you help my dad over at the farm, and the kids hate to do that because they're scared of his dad, he's like, then we can play with firecrackers. And I love that because it's like such a childlike thing. And I feel like up to this point, they've been framed as just being these kind of mean bullies. But there we get to say, oh, they just want to play too.
Yeah.
You know?
It almost made me, for a lot of times when I envision them as like, I know they're preteens,
Yeah.
but still like older teenagers. Like I see them just like in my mind visually bigger than the losers.
Definitely.
Like, but they are the same or similar age. I know some of them are held back, but like you said, it's like that's still childlike.
Yeah.
Those different things that they say or that they're interested, like lighting their farts on fire.
Yes.
Like that's such a childlike thing, and I'm sure there's plenty of adults who still.
Oh, still do that. I know some of them.
Well, I think King here is also trying to make sure that we understand that Henry is something different.
Yeah.
Belch and Victor and all the other bullies that we kind of meet along the way,
Yeah.
with the exception of our good friend Patrick Hoxton.
Yeah.
There's never a moment where they're all in on Henry's plans.
Right.
There's always either a moment where we get a little bit of insight in their own brains where they're very hesitant,
Yeah.
or they'll outwardly say, I don't know, Henry.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, these are still, like you said, like preteens or early teens.
Yeah. Well, Victor especially, like he's the one who King kind of gets in his head the most in terms of how much he's coming to distrust and be kind of scared.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses the phrase "too far" in all caps. He's like, Henry's going to go too far, as
You
our
went
good
too
friend,
far.
as our good friend Billy Crystal would say.
Not too far.
I think that's interesting too, because then also is that like the connection of why Vic is the one that appears to Henry and Juniper Hill too. Is it because he was like it's weird, like that was his voice of reason, even though he paid no attention to it at all.
Yeah.
So is that like what connection is that? Is that no connection at all? It just happened to be Vic, or like?
Well, Victor ended up being the one who scored the most damage during the rock fight, they said, because he was the one who was almost in a way least invested. Because he was just kind of like, look, man, I'm just in this at this point for self-preservation. He's like, I don't even give a shit about these kids anymore. And so that to me, it actually... It gave a little bit more pathos to Belch and Victor, especially because, now I'm at the part in part 5 where there's a lot with the bullies and with where, I'd say that Henry is going too far.
Yes.
And Belch and Victor are still with him. And I think that is very interesting to me because I think in the same way that the losers are kind of bound together, I think that trio is bound together because we always get these other losers like even Patrick and then Moose and then this guy Pete Gordon. And the thing is they're like Pete Gordon like bails immediately on the rock fight because he's like, I don't even hang out with these kids usually. He's like,
I don't know these guys.
Yeah, it's like, and so, but at the same time, there is this kind of weird devotion, and Henry's really got these kids under his thumb, even if they don't really trust him. And I think that just is another thing in this book that I think really speaks to child bonds that are so prevalent, in King's work, but also especially in it.
Even though if you feel it's toxic for you, you still want to be a part of it because you want to belong to something, even if it's a loser club. And I won't get into that because we'll talk about Eddie later. But like that kind of realization is shown there. And I think it's interesting what you're saying because like kids will endure anything to just belong to something. Like I remember doing that as a kid, as much as I'd like to forget those points.
Sure, yeah.
But it's interesting how much verbal abuse, because immediately if they dissented, he came at them with like you're a little shit or blah 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 or like I'll kick your ass, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the like you said, the power dynamics between them as well. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Something I've noticed in not just this book, but a lot of King books is that I feel like there's always the lead bully and his minions. Yep. Especially with Christine, with Bloody Replicant and his little crew.
He's got a whole crew.
I wonder if that's saying something else just about society too. If I put my Psych 101 hat on for a moment here, because I feel like the quote unquote good guys in these books are always trying to just band together as a true group, as an ensemble. Whereas the bullies, I feel like, are always gravitating towards that alpha dog asshole.
Which I'll say, though, is why I get annoyed at the Bill worship in this book.
Yeah.
But I'll say I agree with you that...
It's almost, you could say it's akin to like the Stu Redman.
Agree.
Which, I mean, not as extreme, because I actually really like Stu Redman, but I see what you're saying.
I mean, I'll say this, though. The losers function as equals in the book. The way that they all function and manifest. It's that... And that's why I don't like the Bill worship, because it's always... it's always verbal. It's like it's always coming. It's like more of a perceived idea than an actual manifestable thing. Like Bill is clearly like, you know, maybe quote unquote the leader, but he's not more valuable than anyone else.
And you get like a brief glimpse into that where he's like, I hate that they are looking at me like this because I don't want that role. And like I feel most people who are thrown into that role like have no idea what they're doing. They're just like, I'm the only one that's going to step up. Okay.
Right.
I mean, he has the most invested because of Georgie.
Yes.
But I think that's the only real reason why he allows himself to kind of just be forced into that role, because he rebels against that role so much, or he wants to, but he just knows that they're all kind of like looking to him.
Well, he has the most skin in the game. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it really work.
Yeah.
And I think like with Henry though, like he doesn't really have skin in the game. He's just the one who is filled with the most hate. And I think we see so much of that in this chapter with, you know, because we actually get a lot more texture in this chapter before the rock fight into why he hates Mike Hanlon so much.
This is an example of King world building that I love.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot more into the Hanlon family and the Bowers history. Butch Bowers is also a fascinating psychopath too.
Yeah. I mean, and just the way, and this chapter really shows how much Butch instilled that hatred into Henry.
It's all learned.
Which is really interesting. And I think that whole idea of like the generational sort of evolution of these people, and this is like just another part of the brilliance of the construction of this book, was the interludes serve as that portrait of history. And King is always, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but he's always pushing to show the connections between the past and the present, just by the fact that it's the same families that have lived in this town over time.
So Hatfield McCoys.
Yes. And I love that. I think it's so neat. And, but yeah, we get such like insight into Henry's home life here too, and how much Butch knocks him around, and just like the disrepair that their house lives in. And yeah, there's something kind of grotesque, I think, and maybe slightly one-dimensional about the way King writes it, but at the same time, I think it works and it suits the character.
I'm excited to get to the beans. The beans that him and his father love so much.
Oh God, that's the pound cake section. Those Davenport beans.
Yeah, but I think that. But I think that that's a really fascinating thing, and it's just the way that I think that there's just something really terrifying about. Like, and this is something that I think resonates in kind of today's culture, especially in terms of, generational, the way it passes down, and then the way it manifests out of a younger generation who can only process things in black and white. Because Henry's racism emerges in this chapter so like violently, like the way he speaks to Hanlon, like Mike Hanlon, is terrifying. And like, you can tell that it makes all the other guys uncomfortable too, because I think like amongst Belch and Victor, it's like, hey, casual racism, whatever. It's like, that's what we were raised with. But Henry's like,
it's like a deep ingrained hatred.
Yeah.
Just seeing Mike, elicits all this hatred because of, like you said, and it's interesting to hear this, like when you read the storyline of how it developed between the two.
Yeah.
And like, it's that kind of idea that his father could have like pulled them out of that situation. It could have gone a totally different way, but the hatred he already had and his laziness and his mental stability already at that point allowed this to kind of spiral. So like you said earlier, it was learned, but it was also the environment that he was in as well. Like if Butch had like turned it around and made it work, I wonder what kind of, he'd probably still be a racist. How much hatred would be like directed at.
Yeah, because it's just that whole idea that you instill. It's like putting a bomb in the hands of somebody who clearly has no idea how to use it. Because for Henry, that bomb just explodes the moment that he sees Mike, and everything comes rushing out, and it mixes in with, it's like that kind of racism mixes in with his penchant for just kind of bullying and like insults, and so all of that merges together in this really violent, disgusting sort of stew that it's like shocking the language that he uses. And I think that is another step that King is using. There's such care that King puts into the de-evolution of that character of Henry Bowers. And we're going to talk later about, even just the scene when he encounters Eddie later, which we're going to get to outside the pharmacy. That's another step into just how dark that the character is getting, which is really fascinating. But There's actually a couple other really interesting character beats here. I was actually really moved early in the chapter when Richie, because we talked a lot about Richie's parents and how he seems to have a pretty good relationship with them. But man, there is like such a relatable moment when Richie talks about breaking his glasses and how mad his parents are that he broke his glasses, and how he's like, it's like I think the only time that I remember that we see Richie actually cry because his parents like, he tells them a bully like broke these, like I was pushed and I was beaten up, and his parents don't give a shit because they're like, glasses are expensive. We don't care that you're getting beat up. Don't let your glasses get broken. And I'm not gonna
The logic of that.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, like, I'm not gonna get in. We discussed my childhood bullying history 2 episodes ago, but I'll just say that like my dad was very similar in that it's like, look, bullying's part of life, but don't let your clothes get ruined in the process because that costs money. Like it's gonna happen.
Only see within their purview of what they have to
Which
do.
is, I get it. It's just kind of like, they're just like,
sucks.
they're like, yeah, you're going to have to go through bullying, but try not to make us spend more money while we go through it because we're already suffering. And it's
Basically
like,
just run as fast as you can.
yeah, exactly. Run as fast as you can, which Mike does, because like the early part of the chapter is sort of this huge chase between the bullies and Mike. And I think it's like, I think this whole chapter is like written like an action movie almost,
No, it is.
like the chase scene. I when I read it, I almost felt like it was going on a little too long, but then I'm just like, well, he's really building that suspense. Like you mentioned, Aisha, you're like, well, there's a suspense that's being built here.
I think there's a few chase scenes in this book. There's a big chase scene that's going to happen at the beginning of part 5 involving Bev.
Yeah.
This chase scene here, and then there's the first werewolf encounter with Richie and Bill. And like you said, like it's almost like a joke.
Yeah.
Where you feel like the joke is going on too long and now it's not funny. But when it keeps going on, it gets funny again.
Yeah.
I feel like the
think
intensity
also-
of those chase scenes, they somehow find another gear.
Yeah.
Once the chase, you're like, oh my God, this chase is still happening, whereas in usually any other piece of fiction, it's over within a page.
Right.
And there's something intense and never ending about that. I love.
What were you going to say, Dan?
Well, I think also because King does such a good job painting the geography of Derry. I don't even mean just the world building itself, but like the actual location of where streets are and where the standpipe is and where the barrens are. And so every time there's a chase scene and it spans the entire town, I feel like I just enjoy seeing how Derry is connected. It just makes the place feel a little bit more realistic to me.
Absolutely. And
obviously
especially-
their indifference is also really comes to the forefront too. Yeah.
And I feel like it's in this section where you really start to feel comfortable in a way with the geography. Like it's all starting to really make sense. Like I kind of love, the journey from, say, the dump to the Barrens, is like, it's kind of a journey that you go through and we see, which is really neat. And so, and another huge thing that actually happens in this chapter that I didn't realize happened this early was is the first discussions of them actually reckoning with what it actually is. And they find a discussion when Bill's researching the library about sort of shapeshifters or monsters that appear as one thing to somebody but something else to somebody else, and he calls it a glamour. And that's actually the first time that the ritual of Chud is brought up. And the ritual of Chud was used to defeat glamours. And so do you think that means that that is definitively what Pennywise is? Or do you think that it's more so just a way of them understanding what it is?
I'm going to go with the way of understanding.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
kind of touch on that later at the very end. And we'll get to that point later. But there's something that I can't remember if it's at the end of the actual chapter or at the end of the interlude. But the idea that they like couldn't name this thing, but they just used whatever, like the eating that would happen.
Yeah.
Like, is that only because that's the fear that we can describe, we can give words to, but it's something bigger than that. And then when Mike and I'm not going to go into that too much, but like when Mike and Richie go and see when it comes, like that idea of like we have words that can kind of talk around it, but we can't still give any name to it entirely. Like we'll never fully understand what it is.
And I love that.
That's why it's just easiest just to refer to it as it.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's so neat.
I would agree with that too, because it's weird that they bring up the glamour, because shortly later in the smoke hole section, they do pretty much confirm what it is and where it came from. But then it makes me wonder, has that kind of being always been present to the point where historians and folklorians would write it and call it a glamour? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it a chicken or the egg kind of thing?
Oh, that's a really interesting point. We'll talk more about that and the smoke hole, because I have a lot of thoughts and questions when we get there. Another fun moment that I want to mention here, and then we can kind of loop back to the rock fight and then move on, is is, I think, such another. I was talking earlier about Victor and Belch, seeing them as children, seeing them actually function as kids who just want to play. Because I think there's a couple running themes of this part. And one of them, I'd say, well, maybe not, this isn't a running theme, but a running arc that's introduced with the whole glamour discussion is the idea of, how do we fight this thing? And the first point is like, well, let's fight the werewolf, because they're like, the werewolf is sort of maybe our first sort of the boss we need to beat to get to the next point or whatever. Yeah. And so they're all about getting silver bullets, building, or then it turns into the ball bearings and the slingshot. That is a huge arc that we see throughout all of these chapters. That's something that binds them together. And then there is also, I think, the idea of what is imagination and how can it be used for good and for bad. Like, how can it imprison you, but then also how can it save you? Mm-hmm. And we get that through, the discussion about Eddie's inhaler. We get that through, kind of the photos and all the different moments of that explore sort of the themes of imagination and fantasy and placebos and all those things. And one of the ways that I love that King sort of sets that up here is when they're walking through the barrens and everything, and they actually do sort of a jungle safari, like fantasy sequence, and they're all kind of playing into it. And the way, and King writes it like to a degree where he's showing that in their minds, those things do exist. And like the fish, the way he writes about the piranhas, the tiger, all those things, like they're seeing them. And that, I think, is such a cool way of setting up this whole idea that, when you are a kid, it's inevitable that you sort of, or your mind is open to a point where you can create these fantasies, but then the kind of the rest of the thing is about how these fantasies are both the saving grace, but also the thing that can be a detriment to you, and because that's what Pennywise uses against them is their own imaginations, but they also use it against him. So
it grounds them in a way too.
Yeah,
it reminds you that these are fictional characters who are going through obviously heightened extreme situations.
Yeah. But
there's still kids who want to play. That's the thing that's really interesting. I mean, if you go through all the parts, there's still parts where they're just
playing,
hanging out, even though they know that this monster's out there.
Yeah, I feel like there's a point where he even like specifically writes like, well, I know at one point he says for 2 weeks there was nothing that happened.
Yeah,
but, he even goes into like they were playing games of guns and lasers or something in the barrens and kind of having fun. And you forget that like for a second it kind of was jarring when it happened when I would read it because I'm like, oh wait. Oh, I guess you can still make time to play. Like, whereas I'm like freaking out, like we need to hurry up and find this monster and kill it. They're like, okay, let's take a break, which is kind of like, for me as someone who's working on self-help, that's something interesting to think of too, as what adults do versus what kids do.
Yeah.
Like they can separate sometimes and pull themselves from one imagination to another to help them deal with like the trauma of something.
Hell yeah. I think that's a great way to phrase it because I was thinking about that too. And I think that, maybe the initial read for any adult reading this is like, how can you play right now?
Like, because like they do, I mean, they forget and we forget too.
And I think that whole idea of memories, it's interwound with that too. But I'm just also very intrigued by the whole idea of, when we're an adult, we can't separate ourselves from certain bits of trauma or things that we're struggling with, our own anxieties and things like that. Whereas when you're a kid, you have the capacity to disappear into a distraction or an imagination or things like that as a way to cope. And I just think that's really neat. So let's talk a little bit more about the rock fight, because I just want to talk a little bit. When I was reading it, I was kind of thinking about, I'm like, well, why is it so much better here than it can really manifest in the movies? And I think it just really does amount to a couple different things. But one is the stakes are much higher because it's not just rocks they're throwing. It's firecrackers. And it's like not just firecrackers, it's M80s. Like this shit will take out a huge chunk of your flesh if it explodes on you.
King definitely reminded you of that if you forgot at any point.
Yes.
Like, it was constantly mentioned.
Yeah. And I think
every page had a warning, do not try at home.
Yeah, I know. And then I think also just like you mentioned, it's so much more violent. Like there's so much mention of blood and cuts and like bones being bruised and things like that. And I absolutely love that. And I think that that just really helps up the stakes. And like we watch very like specific moments where, you know, Henry throws the M80 at Ben and he swats it back, and then Henry like rolls away and it blows up and it actually like tears off part of his shirt because the explosion is so intense. And it's like such a cool image, but also like, holy shit, like these kids could kill each other right now.
Well, in addition to that, I think the reason why a lot of times books are just plain better than an adaptation is because, first of all, you have to use your imagination, obviously, right? But second, you're getting a lot more internal monologue here.
Yeah.
You're getting the internal perspectives from these kids that you're not going to get if you go see the movie. You're not going to see Ben's, you know, thinking to himself, "Oh, you've hurt this girl who's my first love." You're not going to get that from a movie. You're just not.
There'd be a lot of pausing.
Oh god, it would be like watching David Lynch's Dune. We're seeing constant inner monologues going on. You know.
Yeah, I think too. I love that we kind of get the different corners of the fight as well, and we see sort of different people squaring off against each other. Like I love the Victor Bill kind of battle because like Bill actually overwhelms him, and like Victor at one point is like he almost says, "I take it back," like which is so funny. And there is those moments of humor too, like near the end. Beverly has a line that I find really powerful where she says, "Get out of our place," to Henry. And Henry responds by calling her the C word. And and the way it's written is almost like when you watch a movie and it's like they say something and then like off screen, like 10 rocks like hit him at once, you know? And the way it's written in that way where he calls her the C word and immediately the losers like pelt him with rocks. Like, we were at a truce, but then you go after Bev and we're all going to pile on you. And I have some stuff, I'm sure we maybe all do in the word processor later, of just great moments from the rock fight. I know I've got some. So any other final thoughts on the rock fight?
You know, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's great.
It's a great way to kick off part 4.
I think so.
This is something else I want to say about this part, especially.
Yeah.
The number one comparison we can make, especially in terms of length, is The Stand.
Yeah.
And I do believe by around this part of The Stand, this page count, our patience was wearing a little thin. I don't want to speak for everybody.
We were all kind of there at that time. At least among us
love all
losers.
those meetings.
This is what I'm talking about. There were a lot of Aisha, have you read The Stand?
Not yet, so I'm just enjoying this.
Well, yeah, I won't spoil too much.
Talk about it multiple times.
I won't spoil too much.
Definitely read it, but just know that it has ups and downs.
It's in my dad's collection, and he's apparently giving me all his Stephen King books.
Well, lucky you. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I do still love The Stand, but what I'm trying to say here is, you know, The Stand has got ad hoc committee meetings around this time, and we're still getting some A+ material, in my opinion. As we're nearing the end of the book, like I'm still invested 100%. Really, at this point of the book, there's some obvious, Richie imitations, obviously, that I would probably say, let's get rid of that.
I feel like I'm
still invested 100% at this point.
I feel like I have more misery in this section than I did in any other, but at the same time, this is my favorite section of the book so far.
Because so much, it's hard to explain. The page count in regards to the other parts of the book, it's not as long.
No.
But so much happens.
A lot happens,
They pack a lot into these pages, I think.
I'd have to say a lot for me was that some of my misery were like also my word process. Was like King had this like delicate dance, and sometimes he would step on my toes, and I'm like, I need to be done with this part. Like, I draw too long, or I just the way he would try to evoke this imagery, and I was like, fail. And other times it's like, yes, I'm feeling like my heart's beating, I'm into this, or I want it to build up more, like don't tell me yet what's gonna happen. So it's kind of like I had a bipolar relationship with this chapter.
It's true. That's cool. Dan, any final thoughts here?
No, man, I love me some rocks. I love hearing your voice, and I love the Losers Club. I'm just happy to be here.
Hey, don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes.
You get paid for that one.
I am loving this bit. Chapter 14, the album. This chapter is kind of all over the place. It's really, I think, ultimately about Mike feeling comfortable within the club, and also in his own way, sort of helping lead them to the end game. And I think it's a really cool section. And I'd say sort of the really big moment here is we get the building of the Losers Club clubhouse, which is not in a tree, not on the ground, but underground.
Sounds like a riddle. What am I? I'm the Losers Club clubhouse.
But we also get a lot of, I think we get a lot of Mike perspective here. We see him sort of, just forging these friendships. And I remember, it's like when I was watching the new It, and even in the old one too, Mike is just suddenly part of the group. And I've always struggled with that a little bit. I'm like, we get a lot of good character building with him outside of the club, but man, it's like show us that. And that's why I like in the miniseries that we see that moment in part 2 with Mike and Bill as kids riding around on Silver.
Yeah.
It's a short little montage, and it I think they added it in for the sole purpose of just being let's show them as kids actually being friends, because we don't see that a lot in the film adaptations. So I think what I love about this section is that we actually see Mike joking, hanging, integrating, easing his way into the group. And that to me is really cool.
Well, not to keep going back to the adaptations, but listen, let's be honest, they're so ingrained. They're just as important to pop culture as the book is. But I think what you do lose in those adaptations is the pacing. Because, after the apocalyptic rock fight, Mike goes home, from what I remember, and then he kind of goes back out later on, and then things happen. He goes home. They meet up again later on. It's not the weird succession where everything's over within a day. Right. It feels like. You know?
And
he
I
really
love
does feel like he is gradually becoming more friendly with this group of kids who, I guess, ultimately really actually saved his life.
Yeah. And also he's involved in their pursuits, which is building the clubhouse. He's helping them dig, and also in researching and designing the bullets, which end up being slugs. Yeah. But he's part of that. So.
I think it's also nice that even though, or that how King portrays it, that even though that they all kind of felt this click when Mike kind of entered the group, there was still had to be that development, because it's weird. Kids are really good at making friends, and yet at the same time very particular. And so it's kind of interesting, okay, yeah, we defended you, we helped you, and I feel this connection with you, but I still don't know who you are. And there's still, you can see the awkward moments where they're feeling each other out, and Richie making jokes, and either Mike comes back at it with another joke to show it's okay, or something, or comes back at him with something else. Same thing with Stan. So you kind of see how they're feeling each other and testing the waters. That's the best way to put it, yeah.
And we see a lot more Stan in this section too. And we get to see him and his weird sense of humor, which I kind of love.
He's very self-deprecating.
Yeah, he's just Stan just seems kind of a little weirdo. He's so quiet at first, and I think that tends to happen with the quiet kids. When you actually become friends with them, you find that the reason they're quiet is because they're actually super weird.
Yeah.
And and the thing is though that weirdness is often very charming if you do forge that friendship. But yeah, so a couple other big moments that we see here. They're building the clubhouse, and then Mike kind of, they trade stories. They're well, here's our Pennywise stories. And Mike actually opens up about his, and we learn a Pennywise story that we didn't know about Mike before, which is that he plays band, which is another cool, hey, let's talk about Mike seeing Pennywise, but then let's also give him another character wrinkle, which I love, which is that he plays trombone in the Neibolt Church Band, which I think is so cool. I love seeing that side of him too, because it's 800 pages in, however much, and we're still learning new things about these people, which is so cool. So but yeah, so he saw Pennywise when he was in the parade, and I actually have a section of that in the cemetery later because it's creepy as hell. So.
I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Horror in the daylight.
I know. So we'll get to that, but yeah. And then Mike also brings the namesake of this chapter, the album, a photo album that his dad's been collecting of Derry history, and we get sort of a revamp of when Bill and Richie looked at an old photo and Pennywise showed up. It's interesting because that happens again, but what I love is that Bill is waiting for it to happen again. And the one photo they look at, he expects it to come to life and it doesn't. But then another one does.
And it's funny, that it is also stopped by this simple thing of plastic sheeting.
I love that.
Yes.
And that moment when this might even be in people's cemeteries because it's so weird, but when a couple of them swear that they see his nose press up against the edge of it, that's so cool. That's if the plastic wasn't there, would his nose and his face have come out of it? Well, it's so neat.
The other thing I think that separates us from the earlier photo album is we really do see that Pennywise has been there forever.
Yeah.
We keep going back every 27 years. The dress might be a little bit different, but it's absolutely Pennywise.
Well, I actually had a question here, and that's because I'm obsessed in this reading, as we talked about last week, with the idea that Pennywise goes by the name Bob Gray. And in the 1700s picture, the woodcut that Mike has, that his dad got, they see a clown, but his face, he doesn't wear makeup. They say, and Bill has the freaky moment where he says his whole face looked like makeup, and but it's basically this clown that resembles Pennywise, and they know it's him deep down. But I kind of asked, I'm because like last week I kind of posited, I'm like, is Bob Gray, is the whole Pennywise character, was that a guy who was an actual clown? And that's sort of a persona that maybe Pennywise took on after he killed this person.
I feel like maybe that's true, just because at some point Pennywise didn't come to Earth as a clown, right? He would have to learn. He'd have to learn what clowns are and learn how they can be used to lure in children. So I agree with your theory, right?
Would the book have been ruined if during the smoke hole sequence they actually see him land as the clown?
Yeah.
Like he was somehow like the first clown. It was just, oh god!
Like the clown floats down from the sky in like a circle.
Clowns.
He's got a little horn. Like, oh wow.
He walks down the spaceship ramp and like slips on a banana peel.
Changed the whole tone for me.
Oh my god.
But I kind of love, like, since the clown wasn't wearing makeup in that, and they keep saying like we're actually looking at it. But the thing is, it's like, no, I think you're looking at Bob Gray, who is a who I think that was a person who Pennywise maybe adopted that countenance of, because that was like way back in the 1700s. So that's my sort of like theory, because in this read I've especially become obsessed with where does Bob Gray come from. And the thing is, I haven't finished the book yet.
Yeah.
I've got probably 150 pages left. So maybe there is something in those final 150 pages that I don't remember, but
It's possible.
I don't remember. So
Yeah,
I think
haven't seen anything for him in a while.
I know, and I just think it's so freaky and weird. So
There's
I
a
love
scene where Pennywise shows up or it shows up at the circus and he meets Bob Gray and he's like, "How can I do what you do?" And then it just becomes a mentoring story like the rest of it.
It's like Big Fish.
Like popcorn freezes, my friend. Let me ask you a question here.
Yeah.
What does everybody think? What guise do you think Bob or Pennywise used before the advent of clowns? Then
I don't know.
'Cause if he's been around since the beginning, essentially, right?
Yeah, he's a dinosaur.
He's a raptor. He's a raptor.
I was trying to think of that too, because I was like, okay, so if Bob Gray is like the first manifestation that we have visuals of, and then Pennywise after that, what is your point, what was he doing before? Like, what's the creepiest thing for children prior to clowns?
A caveman.
Right?
He's just a caveman for like
Maybe the
2,600
Black
years.
Plague is just rats running around. But then also, what's the evolution? If Pennywise was allowed to continue to live like they lost or they thought they wanted, he came back 27 years later, would he see that like clowns maybe aren't as creepy, or like would he choose a different persona? Like,
that's neat.
I mean, clowns are pretty old, right? Like clowns are centuries old, so maybe he could do it early on. I don't know.
They date back, before Bob Gray. I mean, these things are.
I think it's time for a prequel movie.
Please God, more prequels.
I looked you in the eyes with that because I know that would make you
please.
mad.
It begins.
There's actually another really creepy moment. We might have it in the cemetery later, but I love it where King sort of cuts the playfulness of this chapter, because this chapter has a lot of just them existing as children, building, working together.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then suddenly King just sort of has this dead body sail adjacent to the action of this young boy Jimmy Cullum, and it's a very creepy little moment that I absolutely
undertones
love.
with that.
I know, and it's very uncomfortable, and I absolutely love it. And they don't know it's there, and it just sort of really underscores sort of the stakes and what's going on, and the fact that they're special because they as this death unfolds around them, they're still able to be children. I think that's so cool. Any other thoughts on chapter 14, the album?
Dan, what would you like to say about chapter 14?
No, I'm just happy to be here. Big fan of the pod. Love participating.
Beep, beep.
Exactly.
I guess there is an interesting character moment that I'll just throw in really quickly, is that we actually see a lot of Stan in this chapter, because even though he's seen the dead children and he's, had his own encounters with Pennywise, he still is trying to say it's not real, and he doesn't believe it. And it's when he sees the album and he sees it actually happening. And they actually do capture this in the miniseries, because Stan is saying, he's like, I don't believe it. It's not real. It's not real. And I think that also speaks to the larger themes about the ways in which we can, as children, will things. It's like we can will them regardless of what is happening before our very eyes. And that to me is, an interest. And I think it does speak to, obviously Stan's fate, which is that he's the one loser who can't really process it and kills himself. And I think that is, I think
he processes it all too well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think he actually believes it more than anybody else, but can't handle it more than anybody else.
He deals with this multiple times. It's not even like it's the first time. And I like that King kind of continues doing that. Like, every once in a while, we get a little bit of Stan, but we also get that, like, conflicted back and forth of, like, is it because he's like on the cusp of like puberty and like when they talk about like being an adult versus being a kid and like seeing things and actually believing and having faith in them and the power of faith, like is that like he's also dealing with, is that why he's going back and forth? Is that why he's kind of vacillating between, I don't know if it's real or not, but also just the fact that he's, like you said, he believes it the most, and that terrifies him because he sees how real, and like he doesn't want to believe, he wants to believe anything else but that. I like that continuous train of thought that sneaks in every once in a while.
Yeah, and I like that. You know, this is an instance where I think it's this, again, the structure of this book impresses me the more I read it, because I think just one of the many things that we carry with us throughout the book is Stan's death, because it's right at the beginning. It's like really literally one of the first things.
Modern chapter,
yeah. And to me, it's a question that persists throughout the whole book, which is like, well, why did Stan kill himself, and the rest of them didn't? And I think that sort of is what really buoys that character as we keep plowing through, you know, the rest of the story. Is just like, what was it and what happened to him? And we do learn more as it goes on, but there are all of these hints that we get throughout. So, but yeah, so next chapter 15, the smoke hole. This is, I barely wrote anything here because this is a very simple chapter in that, you know, where other chapters jump around to various storylines. Here it is, you know, pretty much primarily focused around this ritual, this old Native American means of having visions that they do. They use their clubhouse, they fill it with smoke, they all sit there, and the hope is that they'll have a vision that will speak to their current plight. And I think that it also is another chapter that really helps to draw the dynamics here. There is, and I think a lot of it centers around the groups, the way that they deal with Beverly, because this chapter is really about, you know, in many ways, them struggling with their level of protectiveness over her and allowing her to be, you know, in that culture, in that 1950s culture, to allow her to be, you know, on the same level. And it's not out of any kind of bigotry, obviously. It's out of a sense of protectiveness, you know?
I was going to say, and also just like their desire for her. They're all dealing with like different, and King thinks he's sneaky with this. And I was like, God, you're like slapping me in the face with this.
Oh yeah.
But like each of them deals at certain moments, specifically Ben most of all, like you get more of him, but they all have their moments where they're like inwardly thinking about their whatever version of love they have for Bev and trying to understand what that is, and like between like understanding what is protection and what is like allowing her to be her own individual person. As you said, seeing her as an equal, not just as a woman. And she even says at one point, like, I'm either in or I'm out. You can't just like half-ass it with me here, because that's not true friendship, basically.
She goes off on it.
Yeah. And I love that.
Which is great. Which is a great little character.
Yeah. It's a really essential scene too, I think. And it really helps, you know, cement that friendship that much more. That's the thing too, that I felt like the version last year got really well, mainly due to the chemistry of the cast. But that whole idea of like when you're hinging your entire story on the idea that these kids are best friends, how do you portray that? That is such a hard thing to portray. And the benefit of the book, obviously, and why I would defend its length, you know, I mean, I think when I was in the early chapters, I was like, man, King, you could have cut this down by this and this. And of course, I do think he could cut it down. But moments like these, I love having that extra bandwidth, that extra
space.
Still on board. Yeah, because it's
I'm not racing to the end at this point.
Right. You know? I feel like unlike maybe a book like The Stand or, you know, Insomnia, like these really long books
Tommyknockers.
that really that could probably be a little bit shorter. This one, it's like, I don't mind the length as much because I feel like it's used really well. Yeah. So, Dan, were you going to say something?
You know, well, I was actually just going to say Tommyknockers.
So yeah, Smoke Hole. This is a very pivotal, interesting chapter, and the one that I really couldn't shake when I was young, because, like, Dan, you said a phrase earlier that I thought was really interesting. You said that this chapter sort of makes it clear what Pennywise is. And so I'd love for you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, they talk about seeing a spaceship landing. When they're in this smoke hole, it's Richie and Mike, right? They're the last ones who who are
Richie
able to
and Mike
make
are the ones who make it.
They're the only ones, after they do this Native American smoke ritual, they essentially have this hallucination that takes them back in time to prehistoric time. And they see a spaceship landing, and they know that whatever's inside is going to be big and terrible, and it's the force that ends up being it. and it's interesting because so it confirms that it is some kind of entity from outer space, but they also confirm that it doesn't have a form that humans can comprehend. Like they talk, and we hear more about that later in the final section of the book. But you don't get the idea that like an alien is going to slither out. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, I don't want to call Pennywise or it an alien, but more of an entity from space. And that's why I feel like this chapter confirms for me. And like you were saying before, who knows, maybe it could be interpreted by once people come to the planet, it can be interpreted by them as a glamour or whatever else. But that was my read on it. Did anyone have a different read though, as far as, because to me it confirms like literally what Pennywise is, if not where they come from.
Well, Dan, when you say spaceship,
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing an actual craft.
No, it's something lands.
Oh, you're right, because it's like its
use
form
spaceship to
just kind of
describe
goes
it.
there.
Yes.
Yeah, but
They use that
That's
phrase.
a good point. Yeah, no, that's a good point, because it's more like the being itself or the force itself is hurtling through the atmosphere and crash lands, and that's what it is, right? But yeah, no,
Yeah,
guess
I mean, that's a
point.
read on it. The way that I think about it, because, you know, being a kid who is versed in the Bible is like, it takes me back to like the book of Exodus and the way that God manifested as a pillar of fire in the sky.
That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah, please
because
go.
For
Yeah, go
years,
forward.
I did think after reading the book that I didn't know it was an alien, because the miniseries does not touch upon this at all. You know,
He's a spider.
but this reread, I really did start thinking about more of a theological or a biblical term, that this is truly some type of actual, like you said, and then to touch upon what you said, Dan, it's an entity of evil.
Yeah.
It's not some alien from Mars that's crash landed, you know? And I think that's a more interesting way. For me, it's a more palatable way of
to add
taking
to
it
your
in.
point too, because they even say that it's, or I guess he goes into, I can't remember the exact point, but he says it came from space, but basically not from space. Like the kind of idea is that like maybe we see it coming down onto Earth, but if we take into account like parallel dimensions or the fact that if this is an evil entity of like older than time itself, then it's just going to come out. It can be coming out of anywhere.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing it materialize as it's touching upon.
Well, you say it's not necessarily from outer space, and they use the term other space, which is something we should all keep in mind for part 5.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Here's a question.
That's a teaser for everybody.
Oh,
When
I
is
cheated.
if it's not, I don't want to discuss it, but is this also the chapter? I have the book in front of me. I'm trying to flip through it. Is this also the chapter where they confirm its gender, or is that later on?
Ooh, I don't remember
It has
that.
a gender?
I think that's later because I don't remember
it
reading
must be
that.
later then. All right, let's not say anything about it then. I'm looking to see if they realized that when in this flashback or whatever. But
I don't recall that being pointed
All right.
out. Unless
Let's save that
That's
for later.
interesting. Yeah. I'll say this though. Dan, I agree with you 100% about this whole idea of it being an entity that, you know, at least comes from another dimension, if not outer space and whatever you want to interpret that as. But it's like, there are several references where Pennywise makes jokes about being from outer space throughout the book. And I love that. And those were things I never caught previously. But on this read, I'm really catching them. And there is one when Bev is leaving Mrs. Kirsch's house in the last one, Pennywise is holding 2 balloons, and it said it came from outer space on the balloon. And Pennywise said, "Tell your friends I am the last of a dying race," it said, grinning its sunken grin as it staggered and lurched down the porch steps after her. "The only survivor of a dying planet. I have come to rob all the women, rape all the men, and learn to do the peppermint twist." Oh, I hate that wacky whore.
Yeah.
But I'll say, I do love that section because I love him sort of maybe poking fun at the idea that you can't comprehend what I am, but maybe it'll make more sense if we frame it that I am an alien, because he's adopting sort of the language of the movies,
Like
you know?
teasing them with little bits of information.
Yeah.
Not really, because
Yeah. And I feel like there's a moment earlier in the book where he does something similar. I can't remember the exact phrasing.
There's a lot of mean teasing by old Pennywise and his myriad use of balloons.
blood on
All
the
right,
refrigerator.
this book's been out for 32 years, so I think it's up to the 4 of us to give a definitive answer, no matter what anybody else thinks. Is it an alien or an entity?
Well, I mean, an alien can be an entity.
Yeah.
Is it a physical alien, or is he like the idea of evil that's landed on the planet? I'm going to go with the latter.
I think we would all go with the latter, probably, yeah?
Sorry, everybody.
I'm going to throw a wrench in there to say both.
Oh, no. Oh, Aisha went with the push for the bet.
I
Push.
agree with Aisha on that, because we find out that like we as human beings we can't quite comprehend what it like actually looks like. Like it's like an eater of worlds, which I think is an alien, but I think we're incapable of answering that question because we're human beings. That's my answer.
No,
We're not-
I love that. And
Dan,
I think,
maybe you're incapable of answering this question.
I will say this, though, that it's fascinating to think of a planet occupied by Pennywise's, like, whatever.
All
this-
Bob Gray clowns.
What would they-
Can you just even
Would they be
imagine?
clowns?
You know what I mean? I know. Well, if
It'd
not
be like
clowns,
that Planet of Homers. Remember that?
I love that sort of concept. But no, this is the question that I've been tossing around in my head is this whole idea of Pennywise being an alien. I love that idea. I think it's sort of neat because I never thought of it that
And
way when
to
I was
be
younger.
100% fair,
Yeah.
we've read this a couple times in our lives. Some of us have, at least. I'm sure we'll have more of an answer by the time that part 5 comes out.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or at least maybe we'll be leaning in more of a direction, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dan. Do you want to tease something here?
Oh no! Well, I was just gonna say I love the idea when you were talking about a planet full of Pennywises. It's like
what I'm on.
because Randall hates that wacky humor. I imagine they're like, oh, we're doing the peppermint twist.
How do you dance? Let's go to Earth.
The whole planet's just filled with them like cracking wise
I'm
and
just
like
trying to imagine, are they like scaring each other?
I know.
Like, what do you do? I feel like they would be absolutely bored.
What are they
It's just
feasting
that
on?
gif of Pennywise you can find of him like spinning like the soccer out.
Yeah.
It's like that
Just
all
of
the
them
time.
doing that all the time. Do I amuse
No
you?
wonder
And they're
they're
like, no, we're all the same.
No.
You're not funny.
You're not funny. No, it's very interesting. But this whole, I think this section is just fascinating because it gives such a weight to Pennywise. And that's, I think, the thing that I've never really been able to let go of this section is no other part. I can't think of another like villain or evil in a Stephen King book that is rendered as powerful as this is, just for the sheer fact that the way that King has Richie and Mike describe how foreign the land is where they manifest, the fact that like it's not even the past, it's I think Richie uses the phrase like it's a go. Yeah, it's a go. It's like so long ago. That to me is so eerie and like uncomfortable, and I mean I know it would have been so dumb for King to like have a brontosaurus coming.
God, please.
I would
Like
have
if
enjoyed this.
what if there was like 100 pages of Mike and Richie running from raptors?
You get Blue in there. You get,
I would think it's a little strange that there were absolutely no dinosaurs around. That's all I'm saying.
This is before dinosaurs.
I know, but I
I'm
love
convinced.
to think that that's the case, and it's just so neat to me because it really I feel like the ambiguity here is so perfect because it's like even with like them using the phrase spaceship, but it being described as a pillar of fire, and this whole and then it creating this giant crater in the ground too, and the idea that we haven't really seen what its true form is yet, but that it exists and it's built up power for so long, and the idea that we can't even comprehend how long ago this was, and that to me is something that stuck with me even from being a teenager reading this book is just the epic quality of the monster here.
Daddy, may I read
Yes,
this?
please. Yes, son.
Thanks, Daddy. It's always been here since the beginning of time, since before there were men anywhere, unless maybe there were just a few of them in Africa somewhere, swinging through the trees or living in caves. The crater's gone now, and the Ice Age probably scraped the valley deeper and changed some stuff around and filled the crater in. But it was here then, sleeping, maybe, waiting for the ice to melt, waiting for the people to come.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
so good.
That was by Stephen King. That wasn't my take on it.
I thought you were really.
I thought you were just riffing there.
I just had some great ideas.
No, that's great. Any other thoughts on the smoke hole? I think I've got a quote later in one of these sections.
a little.
Yeah,
What you got?
It's what I liked about this too was the fact of when they talked about the space within the actual smoke hole and how like there was this like at first there was a little bit of reference to like it seemed like our arms were touching, but now we suddenly have all this space.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like the concept of like the expansion and being far away, because they touched upon this in the house too, of like stretching things out, making you feel more alone and distant. And there's a point where like when after it hits or lands on Earth and they're trying to get back, and Bill and Ben, I think, are talking about how like they were trying to find them, and they're like, it seemed like the space was so much bigger. And I think Ben says at one point, he's like, I was reaching my hand out and just shaking and hoping you were there. And like Mike said, or he says, if you hadn't grabbed my hand, I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
Like that to me, that kind of terrified me a little bit, because I was like, so what would have happened if they couldn't have found them?
Well, they've just been lost forever.
Yeah, like how much of time was like slipping? Were they lost? Like what doorway they were going through? Like that to me, like stuck in my mind.
Yeah. Do you think there was some thinny action going on here?
Maybe some King's Dominion.
Do you have that later?
No.
Okay. Well,
That's
we
a good
can riff on that later in King's Dominion. Dan, final thoughts on the smoke hole?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me on the pod. It's always a pleasure to be here.
This bit is not old for me.
I'll
Check
just
us out on
say,
iTunes.
some people say the shit hits the fan, and I say the it hits the planet.
That's good. I love that. You're fired.
Sip my
Chapter 16.
Everybody chug your beer.
Chapter 16, Eddie's Bad Break. This is, to me, a very, one of the probably, I don't know, it almost, to me, makes Eddie one of the most, well-developed characters of this.
Yeah, there had been some, from earlier episodes I listened to, some questions about how people felt about Eddie, I think.
Yeah.
Because at that point, he wasn't as well-developed, I think, as the others. But I think this part really gives Mike, this whole part that we're talking about for this episode, gives Mike and Eddie the most to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really love this chapter a lot. Just
do
everything
too.
that happens, it's just really, I love it.
And I love it.
Yeah,
go Dan.
What I was going to say, I think my absolute favorite thing in this chapter, which of course, quick summary, Eddie, it's really Eddie gets his arm broken by bullies and you see the fallout and how they deal with that. But for me, it's when he finally stands up to his mother in the hospital and he almost becomes like an adult for a little bit. And that to me, we see the kids get fucked over by adults so much in this whole book, and to see them finally stand up like that. And Grant, he goes back into his meek Eddie self after that. But to me, that was like such a fist pumping moment. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that too, it's almost, it's not even Eddie being an adult so much as I think really drawing upon the power of his bonds, like the fact that he's been empowered by his friends, because one of the running themes of this chapter that I love is this whole concept that grown-ups are the real monsters, which is a realization he comes to in this chapter. And it's a theme that I think is really resonant within the book because so many of the adults are portrayed as either ineffectual or kind of monstrous, in a lot of ways. The kids are, the kids obviously do too with Henry, but the concept of, I always go back to Bill's dad, Zach, who to me is maybe one of the cruelest characters in this book, just because he's so dead, inside, and he's so mean to his son in a very sort of passive way that I find really tragic, and just the concept. And even though Mr. Keene is not a villainous character by any means, and I think he's trying to help Eddie, at the same time, the way that Eddie responds to him, and he uses the phrase grown-ups could be so hateful in their power sometimes, so hateful, and that to me was very powerful. And he has another question where he asks, how could you fight a grown-up who said it wasn't going to hurt when you knew it was? And I think that's something anybody can relate with, because you remember when you were a kid and them saying stuff like that, or going to the doctor, or even just when your parent spanks you or something and says, this hurts me a lot more than it hurts you, that kind of bullshit.
My parents never said that. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts them.
So I think that it's maybe just Eddie's most empowered moment, as a child. I think it's more so finding the real power that comes with bonds, and maybe being your most inspired when you're at that moment where you don't trust sort of the maybe I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, the routines and the platitudes that come with being a grown up. He's so empowered here, and the way that he's able to stand up to his mom, who casts his friends away once he's in the hospital, which is to him, I think, at this point in his life, the cruelest thing that somebody could do to him.
I think the ambiguity with Mr. Keene here is really great.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a moment way earlier in the book where Mr. Keene is watching Eddie kind of riding away with his friends, and they tease that he knows the real truth about Eddie's condition.
Yeah.
But he almost has a smile on his face, if only you knew what I knew.
Yeah.
So there's still something here that it is possible that he's taking pleasure in telling him that he's not really sick, as opposed to being informative or being helpful or being considerate.
That's
he's taking
an
some
interesting
type
read,
of a...
I was gonna say, I feel like the maliciousness that comes so naturally to a lot of the townsfolk, I feel like it's intensified by it, because that whole interaction, it seems so scary to me because it was realistic. That's a situation you would be with an actual doll, and it has no connotations of any magical being interjecting there, but at the same time, when they explain how his face kind of stretched and his eyes had this certain kind of glint to them.
Yeah.
like it almost seemed like Derry and it, when the adults are involved in these like certain behaviors that are hateful and hurtful, it's a little extra. Like it's turned to 11 by it, and so that's why it's like for me, Mr. Keen's scene was like I wanted to get out of there with Eddie so badly.
Well, it's like he was sowing discord in a way. Like I think maybe he wanted to see the explosion that would happen with Eddie and his mom. You know,
I kept thinking about how he's got the milkshake there, and he's kind of trying to go for it. And it's just I feel like we've all been in that type of a situation where we almost know we're about to hear a truth that we don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So I feel Eddie's not a dumb kid. I feel like there's a lot of psychosomatic stuff here. Has anybody seen that documentary, Mommy Dead and Dearest?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
It's really fascinating. It's basically about this woman who convinced the world and her own daughter that she was just not viciously, but just ill with a lot of different diseases.
Yeah, incredibly deeply ill.
Couldn't walk. Was confined to a wheelchair. Her cancer issues. It turns out it was all a lie.
Yeah.
And you should watch this documentary. There's an awful twist of events.
Yeah.
But a lot of that reminded me of this, though.
Let's just say it's a true crime documentary.
It's a true crime documentary.
It's on HBO.
And it's on HBO. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun Sunday night. It's a fun Sunday night viewing. But a lot of that, I mean, you can read into that here where if it is ingrained to you at a certain age that there is something wrong with you, you're going to believe that there's something wrong with you.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever it takes for that belief to kick it in, whether it is having a shortness of breath if something happens, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
And there's something tragic about that for Eddie.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say later on when he's reflecting on this, he even says like he could overcome the idea of what was it? What did he say? He could overcome the idea of like it being a fake disease, but he couldn't overcome the fact of like needing that medicine still, or that it might possibly work. And that was very interesting for me too. Like learning about Eddie is that maybe at any point in time he could have stopped using the inhaler and all these medications, but he's also actively choosing, even after all this time, to still like be that sick Eddie or like be that role, which is...
Well, he says something in that part you're talking about, which is also something to keep in mind is it doesn't matter if it's a placebo. Words don't matter if a thing works.
Yes.
And that's something to definitely keep in mind throughout the rest of the book.
Absolutely. And that's why when I was a kid, I remember thinking like, I'm like, get to the good stuff. I'm like, why are we spending all this?
Where's it?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, why are we sitting in a pharmacy office with this pharmacist? Why are we talking about his inhaler? And, but now obviously I think I appreciate this chapter so much more just because, it ties together so thematically, but it also shows the character in such an interesting way. And I think also when you mention the tragedy of all of this, it's, this is, I think, sort of a key moment that we all have. And this is definitely something we've talked about on the pod before in terms of King exploring that moment when youth first sort of realizes that adults are fallible, like that their parents are imperfect and that they lie to us sometimes and things like that. Like that's definitely something King has touched on in his work previously. And here I think this is Eddie's moment of realizing that that adults, they don't always know what's best for you. And they do lie to you and they do have their own moment. And like, cause then Eddie has that moment later when he kind of confronts his mother about sending his friends away. And he says, I love you, Ma, but I love my friends too. I think you're making yourself cry. He says that to her. And that moment I think is so key because he's acknowledging, he's like, you are also capable of lying and creating these fictions in ways that are, detrimental to me. I don't believe you.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's so
a loss
sad.
Of childhood too, when you realize that point in your life that you can't trust all adults, because again, that goes back to at the end of the chapter when they talk about faith and power and like how the strongest thing for a child is faith. And as you get older, you start to you get a breakdown. There might still be things that you believe in here and there to kind of keep your sanity, but overall you lose that sense of imagination. You lose that sense of like faith in what things could be in the world when you first learn that your parents can lie to you, or when you first learn that the people that you're supposed to trust don't always know what they're doing or malicious. Or
I love that part of the interlude. And once again, I can't stress enough how there's no way I would appreciate these interludes as much as I do now when I was a kid. There's no way. I mean,
I can't even imagine reading these as a kid.
I did, but I think what Randall touched on a couple weeks ago was, the things that stuck out to us when we read it as kids were all like the extremely violent or sexual things that are happening here. The more introspective things we now retain when we become actual full-fledged, quote unquote adults, of course.
Yeah.
Well,
and I just think like thematically, the stuff that I'm always drawn to these days tends to have to do with sort of the stark lines that are drawn between children and adults as we get older, and the things that we long for as adults that maybe we had when we were children. And those are themes that I always really respond to. And I think it has to do with the fact that I grew up reading Stephen King, because that's such a pervasive theme in his work, especially in It, and something that I think he captures so beautifully in this book. And this chapter especially, like, again, this is a chapter that I probably, my second read, I probably skimmed it pretty heavily.
Yeah, Eddie's at a pharmacy and he's in a hospital room.
Well, especially because you got chapter 17, which is Patrick Hockstetter.
Oh,
and
lordy.
I'm amped to go there.
Hockstetter.
But before we get there, any other final thoughts on Eddie's bad break? Well, I'll say one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that I think that we kind of overlooked Henry breaking his arm. And that to me is actually, obviously a big moment in Henry's development, and also in just this whole idea of the kids versus grown-up situation that this chapter really epitomizes, is that is a grown-up tries to intervene when Henry and Eddie are fighting, and Henry fucking shouts that guy down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't he lay his hands on him?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he shoves him back, yeah.
And that is such a huge moment. Go, Dan.
Well, it's funny because... Sorry. Like, at that part, excellent, hit mute. It's funny because I agree with you guys in that when I read this as a little kid, I was more drawn to the gross shit, and the monsters, the sex, whatever else. But something that did resonate with me at a very young age was the scene of Henry taking no shit from an adult, and how that signified how crazy he was. Like, that is me being a little kid, like, that's even then I knew, like, oh shit, that's a big deal. I don't know why that that almost like seems freakier to me than the arm break does.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just like, I don't know, I've seen other instances as I've gotten older where kids have like mouthed off to adults and the adults just kind of back down. And even as an adult, that freaks me out, And I hope a teen bully never yells at me, because I'll probably back down too. It's just like,
well, it's like
I'm afraid I'll just start swinging like a madman.
It's like Mel said in a previous episode, she was like, if I see a group of 14-year-old boys across, like, walking towards me on the street, I cross the street. Like, I don't want to be around those kids, because she's like that age, like between like 12 and 15, 16, that is the cruelest age, man. Like, that's
I was probably one of those kids back in the
I know, I was too. You were going to say, Justin?
Oh, another big thing. We've been talking about the idea of them being fated together, But there's a really great moment here, I think, when Bill's mother is seeing something. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. You know what? I'm going to hold off. Yeah, I'm holding off on this.
Okay.
I'm going to hold off.
Like, I know where you're going.
Yeah, teaser.
Well, the other big moment in this chapter specifically is we actually get the moment where they choose Bev to be the wielder of the slingshot, because they've got the silver slugs.
Yeah.
And they're like, who's going to shoot it? And Bev has the perfect aim. She's reluctant, but she's got the best aim of all of them. So. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Let's venture into a very dark chapter. Man,
I've been waiting.
I know. One that I personally had to skim over a very large section of, because I cannot deal with the poor animals getting in trouble with Mr. Hockstetter. So Patrick Hockstetter, this is chapter 17. Man, this is fucked up. And so basically, I think I'm going to lay out the broad strokes, and then we can kind of talk about him as a character, because I think there's a lot to discuss here. But basically, Patrick Hockstetter is a very weird child who is not a bully necessarily, but kind of pals around with the bullies. We first meet him in the previous chapter. He's there when Eddie's arm is broken. And then we see him hanging out with Henry and Belch and company in the dump where they're lighting their farts on fire. And Justin?
I'll read this description.
Please
Once again,
do.
This is not my description, everybody. This is Stephen King's description.
Please do it.
I have to make this perfectly clear. He's described as a genuinely spooky kid. Eddie had never seen him with anyone else. He was just enough overweight so that his belly always hung slightly over his belt, which had a Red Ryder buckle. His face was perfectly round and usually as pale as cream.
Ew.
Yeah. Now he had a slight sunburn. It was heaviest on his nose, which was peeling, but it spread out toward either cheek like wings. In school, Patrick liked to kill flies with his green plastic school-time ruler and put them in his pencil box. Sometimes he would show his fly collection to some new kid in the play yard at recess, his heavy lips smiling his gray-green eyes sober and thoughtful. He never spoke when he exhibited his dead flies, no matter what the new kid might say to him.
That's so creepy. Like him not speaking. He talks about his lips all the time, too. He calls them big rubbery lips at one point.
Like fleshy lips or something? And gross.
It's so gross.
Well, and of course, the big thing we find out, he eventually kills his little brother, Avery. Oh. And I love that it seems like with Patrick Hockstetter, King is just like doubling down on making someone who's worse than Henry Bowers, and he definitely succeeds.
Think about this. It is constantly using either adults or other kids as conduits, especially with Henry and some other people that we'll talk about in a future section of it.
Yeah.
A couple of people, I should say. But even he knows there's no way to wield Patrick Hockstetter.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he doesn't hesitate to kill him here.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Because the other quote-unquote psychopaths, like a Henry Bowers, he absolutely uses Henry. And you feel like, well, maybe you could use Patrick, who seems to probably be even stronger. But you can't. There's nothing there.
Yeah, he's
There's something eerie about that.
Yeah, and it's almost like, well, you wonder then, it's like, did his evil arise from, the rotten soil, or was he just pure evil? Because Pennywise wasn't able to shape him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like his emptiness and his sort of sociopathy was so and they do describe him as literally a sociopath.
Yes.
That he lacked empathy for any being but himself.
And he believes he's the only real thing.
Yes.
Which
Even
is
then, he
creepy.
questioned his reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say he's what do they call it? Solipsistic, like where you think you're the only person on the planet. That I think that concept was introduced to me through this character specifically. Like I never read anything like that before reading it.
Right. So we basically it's such a strange chapter because we watch we basically see him hanging out with all the bullies. They all leave except for Henry and Patrick.
Of course, and they're lighting farts.
Yeah, they're lighting farts.
Yep.
I think
pants are around their ankles.
with their pants around their ankles, their dongs are all hanging out, and I think yes, and I think we have. I know that I have some quotes later.
Oh,
from
don't
this
worry.
section.
Between this and Davenport's beans,
The beans.
Can't wait.
So, but and then also, so then we get kind of a moment where Patrick starts jerking off Henry,
Yeah.
and it's sort of a strange. I don't know. I don't know how to talk about that section. You know what I mean? I've been thinking about it. I'm like,
stuck. That's we were talking about when we were younger. Like what stuck with you?
It stuck with me.
That stuck with me big time. Yeah. Dan, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say it's interesting because Patrick is definitely like a creep and a murderer that is like a child killer at this point and a deviant. And I think as he's gotten older would probably be a sexual predator as well. It's interesting because I don't know if they're trying to hint that either character is gay. I almost got it more. I almost interpret it more as this like boys experimenting kind of thing. But because it's with literally the two most awful characters in the book outside of Pennywise, it just has this underlying creepiness to the whole thing. Especially because they both go into this kind of weird trance-like state. Like it almost doesn't seem sexual. It seems like cult-like or something. It's weird.
Yeah. Good.
That's my question. Because also when does anyone know when was it Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy?
That was
that time period?
Bundy was the 70s, and then Gacy was what, like into the 80s, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, so part of me was because I didn't look it up because I was trying to stay off of Wikipedia, but I was wondering like during this time period when you have like people dealing with like homophobia and like saying that still happens now that they're like sexual child predators and like they only like sinful things or the things that are like not normal, I guess would be considered bad, especially in the 1950s. Like anything done between two men was like real deep closet.
Oh yeah.
So, and then like what Dan was saying, speaking to them being in a like trance-like state, and it was fine until Patrick took it one step too far.
Yeah.
And asked, it was like, you can put it in my mouth. And
right.
It was like, what for Henry either broke that trance or made that one step too far? Is King trying to say that there's like this homosexual latent, or are they just like, again, like Dan was saying, just like experimenting young boys, and because like no girl would probably go near them. Yeah. That's all they,
I think personally that, I think sort of when you are a sociopath, sex is a tool,
as you know. The way you said, like, well, as a sociopath.
I was waiting for that caveat.
But I think it's sort of like maybe the idea of sex is I think maybe you understand early on that is a way to control someone or use someone.
Yeah.
And Henry we have to remember, he's 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. So it's like the idea of being pleasured by somebody in that sense, and he's probably still very new. I mean, he may not even be masturbating yet. It's like that whole concept of feeling pleasure there, no matter where it comes from, is new to him. And I think that's why he goes into the trance-like state. And then Patrick, however, sort of understands that he's just using this, and it's a way to sort of get him under his thumb. And I think that almost in a weird way is what, and then the mouth thing is, I think, when he probably suddenly realizes and hears his dad, decrying maybe the homosexuals and whatever, and suddenly it becomes real to him what's actually happening, and he's able to look past sort of the sensation that he's feeling, which is probably a very fresh and new one to him. And I think with Patrick, it's just a means of I think it's a moment that draws a stark divide between the two characters, because I think it shows that even Patrick was capable for a moment of overpowering Henry, and understood a way to overpower Henry, which in a way makes him more dangerous. And so I don't know, it's something I was thinking about, but I also, you always I think the thing that I struggled with was, I remember when I was young and I didn't know any gay people, I think I interpreted this as very uncomfortable because, I wasn't raised in a family that did this, but I was raised in a society that demonized homophobia. I grew up in, Metro Detroit, and it was definitely something that I heard my parents never spoke to me about it. And sexuality was something I didn't discuss with them until I was older. But, so I think that I didn't understand homosexuality at that age. So when I first read this book, it was a moment of deviancy. And and of course it's framed as a moment of deviancy in that these are two evil characters. Well, and so I think that as an adult, you just worry. I think that it's kind of like, oh, is this casting? It just made me think about it deeper, because I'm like, well, is just this trying to show that homosexuality is a form of deviancy? But I don't think that's the case. I think that it's more about the sociopathy and things like that.
The flip side for me, though, again, as 80s kids, it's a whole different world growing up in the 80s, especially your teen years going into the early 90s. And for me, when I read this, I wasn't on part one. But this is one of the early instances of a quote-unquote normal depiction of two gay men together with Adrian Mellon and Don Haggerty, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the first instances for me in pop culture of seeing just two men dating, normal jobs, not some Hollywoodized, what's the best way to put it? Like a cruising William Friedkin situation, like that. I mean, seriously though, it was just, so for me reading this part, I didn't have the same read in terms of the deviancy, because I feel like if the Adrian Mellon part wasn't here, and all we have homosexuality of whether or not they're just experimenting around was this, I would definitely have a harsher read on it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's just a power thing, and maybe taking advantage of the fact that it's possible, listen, by the way, out there, look, none of us are doctors, okay? We're just,
we're just ripping
certain
here.
Things. We've seen Mindhunter, okay? What I'm saying is, I think, I'm guessing it's possible that Patrick, over time, learned some of Henry's behaviors, and maybe either has discovered or has assumed that it's possible that Henry is actually homosexual.
They did say that Patrick was cleverer than his IQ. So I mean, you can be stupid and learn to manipulate people.
So it's possible. You were saying about taking power, and that was his way to take power, was to reveal something about Henry he did not want anybody to know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, especially with, I guess maybe it's like because we're so far removed from Adrian Mellon at this point.
It's true.
But
we're like
you
800 pages away.
I know, but you are right, though, in that they do draw a stark contrast. And I think when I was young, though, it was this was the moment, rather than Adrian Mellon, that really screamed at me, because it existed in such a perverse sort of scene. And I think that... but I think I kind of love what you guys are saying just about this idea of Patrick's cleverness, because I think I always remembered him as being a violent, dumb character.
No.
And I think sort of rereading it has been fun because it's like, oh, and then I can't read the animal violence.
Oh, let me read it for you. Hold on.
No,
Yeah.
I can't read it. I can't
Dan,
read
would you
it.
like to start? No, I'm kidding.
Although I will say,
we can summarize it, right? We should probably say what happens if that.
oh, I know. I read it when I was young, and it made me so sick. I
It's-
was so sick to my stomach. I was less sensitive when I was a kid in terms of animals, but I totally skipped this. And
Yeah.
but I will say,
humans are animals too. Okay, let's just put that out there.
wait, say that again.
We're all animals.
Human beings are animals too, Randall.
But I will say that I think that though, if you look at the ways in which he tortures, there is what's the word I'm looking for? There is an awareness and a method to the madness. You know what I mean? That shows that he is not just a dumb, violent monster. He's torturing with purpose.
Yeah, 'cause they even talk about how he's like, after a while, he realized, like, he understands that he's breaking the rules,
Yep.
and there's a certain society thing, and he has to stay within them not be caught. And even then, like, when he starts to realize, okay, there's maybe a little too much heat because people are like starting to look at me, he starts going to diseased homeless strays
Yep.
after that point, or
Yeah.
like a pigeon on the street, because like. He's not. He would have been caught a long time ago if he wasn't clever.
Right, right. And I think that's a really interesting wrinkle to the character. And again, I love you bringing up this whole idea of Pennywise almost being like, I got to get rid of this.
This
kid.
guy's a jerk.
This guy's a real
really
jerk.
messed things up around here.
It kind of makes me think of like Donald Trump with his dad. Like he's gonna like take over the business.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I imagine it.
So basically, we see Patrick when he's left alone to his devices. Bev, and the whole thing is we're witnessing all of this through Bev's perspective, which is, I think, is also what ups the sort of terror of it all, because she's a young girl and she's afraid that she's going to get raped.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I
like
was like, run, girl.
I know.
I was
and-
also afraid for her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even having read it,
Yeah.
knowing that, it's like just, knowing what I know now as an adult about the way that women feel in society, like, having become more aware of these things over time, it's just so much scarier, because it really is that whole concept that she's not worried she's going to get beat up. It's not like if Eddie were there and he'd just get punched, and it's like, A, she's worried she'll be killed because they'd be like, you can never tell anyone, but B, it's like, well, what would you do before you killed me?
And it's a slow. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a slow realization too. Like,
Yeah.
because and this goes to the fact that she's still a young girl. Like, she knows subconsciously that there are things that boys can do to girls, or like, because she even says like, I know where that's supposed to go, but like, it's a slow realization. She doesn't immediately kind of start like precluding to the fact that she could get raped. She's like, it first seems like they'll just beat her up, and then you kind of get more, and she's like, I'm a girl. Oh shit. This is what they can do to me. And like, these are the type of feelings that I feel like toward, and then she's also dealing with the fact that she's dealing like, I see this guy's ding-a-ling, and Bill has a ding-a-ling,
Yep.
and like,
I love that. Yeah.
that's a weird sexual fucked upness, because I think a lot of women have to deal with that too, of like, you being in these positions of seeing like, I want to say violent sexualized situations, and I feel like at any point a girl has had like a moment of like having to struggle with, okay, like, I have some sort of a like turn on, but I not turn on to this, but like it's making me think of something, and like that's fucked up in
Yeah.
your head to.
It gets all interwoven.
Yeah. Especially as a teenage girl,
Yeah.
trying to figure out like, oh shit, they can rape me. That's
Mm-hmm.
a thing.
So you
Man.
think King does a pretty good job here of trying to capture that from a male writer perspective with Bev, at least in this instance?
In this instance, I'd have to say to an extent to what men can actually understand.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. As I said, as a male writer trying his best to capture the inner
felt
workings.
Like the slow realization was more of like the male perspective of it, because
Sure.
I feel like me immediately, but even as a young girl, when I was younger, like that was beat into me, so I would have automatically just jumped to that thought, like, because they also made references to her in before, like about her body and her being girl Henry and the rest of them. So like, that was always a thought that could happen. Like if they ever overpowered the whole group, what would they do to Bev specifically? Like that was, so I think King did a pretty, like a good job enough for that. I felt that terror with her. Like it made me relive that terror, but I also, you feel that yesterday I was getting off my bike and I feel like I subconsciously turned away from someone so my back was not to them, because I didn't, it's
Right.
just like, you're a guy, you might be the nicest guy in the world, but like,
Right.
you know.
That's interesting. But then Bev witnesses Patrick visit his refrigerator of darkness,
Jesus Christ.
where he keeps his animals.
Oh, man.
And but then we kind of get a jump back. And so King kind of has a moment where he says, okay, let's pause the narrative here and get into just how bad this kid is. And we first hear about how he, murdered his young brother, sort of very, not in any, and just like not, at the age of 5 years old and not even really, understanding what he was doing, but not even doing it in a malicious sense necessarily. He just wanted more attention from his parents, and he didn't, he doesn't understand the weight of what he's doing. And then King spends quite a long time getting into his animal torturing.
I want to get to back to one other point where you were saying, like, he almost was like, it was because they weren't paying attention, but also the fun fact of him saying, like, my schedule was off. Like, you're messing with my life, sir. And like, it goes back to that whole idea of like the reality, something else. If he's the only real thing, then he should be able to direct the flow of everything that's going on. But the minute Avery shows up, his whole schedule is thrown off. And then he gets this sense of like power and like euphoria of just feeling like everything is fixed and back to normal. And that at age 5, I don't know if I was thinking that at age 5.
I hope I wasn't. Or maybe I was.
One of the creepiest things in that chapter is how the dad notices like the wet footprint, like the dad. You get the idea that he pretty much knows what Patrick did and then doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
And I always have I don't have kids. I don't know if you have kids, Aisha. I know those guys don't. But
well, thanks, Dan.
I just know you don't. I know you don't. I know you. No, but
I would hope I don't.
I always wonder if one of my biggest fears is having kids and realizing that there's a sociopath and like one of them is a sociopath. Like, what would you do in that situation? You know what I mean? Because that probably happens a lot. Like, just realizing your kids are a lot worse than you think they are. And so
I'd probably just put a pillow over their head or something.
Oh, Jesus.
How old are they when I discovered
Yeah,
this?
really. Can we have like a cool knife fight or something like that? Or does it have to be like only one man leaves or something like that?
Just the idea of Patrick's dad knowingly repressing that really got to me reading it this time around. It just really gave me the chills. And then obviously we have the refrigerator full of dead animals, which is also scary. And
then we have a refrigerator filled with bugs, Pennywise bugs,
right? Flying leeches. Are they the leeches from? Well, I'll save that for a.
Ooh, King's Dominion. Yeah.
But yeah, that
I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut because that whole section for me is going to be in a different section of this podcast.
Yeah, we can just glide over and say that there are some kind of flying leeches that leave giant fucking holes in your arm, and
eyeballs.
It's so gross.
Ooh.
And we'll get to it. Yeah, and it's and so.
There's a specific thing I want to say for the cemetery that's after the leeches, but also has to do with Patrick Hoxstetler that but I'll save that for the cemetery. So
sweet, yeah, we'll save most of this. So basically, Bev witnesses him meet his maker, as they say, and.
But she doesn't actually ever see.
No, she doesn't
take him.
Right.
Like, I was expecting her to see have to maybe even be confronted by it. Like, I see me doing this. I was expecting that, and I was a little disappointed.
But do we remember the voice that she hears?
Hello and goodbye. Right. Well, doesn't she hear him say hello and goodbye though?
Yeah.
She doesn't see him. Right.
She
does see it.
To Patrick, I thought.
Yes,
yeah.
She hears it, and it's her father's voice.
It's her father's voice.
Oh, that's
So
right.
I think the implication is that if she saw, it would have been her father because that's who she's most afraid of.
Yep.
Which was to me
A nice little
deeply
touch.
unsettling.
Can you also? Patrick doesn't actually ever see him clearly, and so I mean, besides the bugs being something that he's terrified. Because Patrick's not really terrified or scared of anything, was that why he couldn't get like a distinct, like it could not have a solid form?
I think so. Yeah, because because it keeps changing a million different things. I wonder if that's right. Yeah,
that's a good point.
But he does talk about how the instance with the leeches was like the one time he was afraid, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Doesn't Patrick Hoxstetler talk about like a leech memory, and that's like the only time he can ever be afraid?
I feel like though, is that like the only thing he was terrified of? Because then it takes no other form after that besides.
I think so.
It's really a coagulated face. Yeah.
It's kind of like in the Stan miniseries when
Which goes back to your like whole idea that it's like this dude is too crazy for even me.
Yeah.
It's weird to think evil thinking that.
What if Pennywise just showed up and goes, hard out?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because this is ostensibly the kind of chapter that you could say, well, you can cut this. Like, you don't need this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if let's just say a corporation bought this and wanted to streamline.
We need a Titan 900.
Yeah, exactly.
Not 11
like, we
hundo.
got to streamline this shit. We can easily cut that.
But here's what would happen.
But it's like, I know that's
you would get rid of all the interludes, right?
Yeah.
And you would get rid of like the great Eddie Corcoran chapter.
Yep.
And you would get rid of this chapter.
Yeah.
and it's
like,
all
I
so
need
much
it.
good
I love
texture.
it.
Yeah. And it's like it's
Well,
not like
I-
it's not like the kid in the stand where you can cut that and it doesn't really hurt things.
Yeah.
This all feels really essential to the
Yes.
storytelling. Dan, go ahead.
Well, no, I just always get a kick of King like trying to outgross himself, you know.
Yeah.
I love just how much he tops himself in every sense of the word, like with the sexuality and the violence, and then let's make this kid a child murderer on top of that.
Oh, man.
And he also tortures animals. I mean, and it's.
But you know
it's
why,
kind of-
Dan? I think it's because he's like, okay, I'll give you guys a whole chapter. We're gonna have some kid get his arm broken and told that his asthma medicine's not real. Are you still with me? Here's Patrick Hockstetter.
Yeah, exactly.
You had
Yeah,
to
are you
get
still
this
awake?
aside.
Table setting here.
I keep when you guys talk about Pennywise being like, I'm out. It reminds me of which Nightmare on Elm Street does Dokken do the song for? Is that 5 or something like that?
Oh,
or 3?
Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors part 4 or part
3.
And the music video is
Oh, man.
actually Freddy having a nightmare about Dokken, and then he wakes up at the end and he goes, "Whoa, what a nightmare! Who were those guys?" Like that.
Incredible flex move by Freddy Krueger.
I love it. I love it. Final thoughts on Patrick Hockstetter. I know we're going to revisit him.
Dan, what do you think?
I hate him. No, I'm kidding. No, I want
This
to say
guy's a jerk.
Patrick's great. The podcast is great. I'm just really happy to be here.
We don't care about the rule of 3 here. We're going to keep going.
Patrick's the model character. We should all just. I love all the characters. All the characters are great, and all the listeners are great, and all you guys are great. And I love this podcast.
Dan, I agree, 100%.
Chapter 18, The Bullseye. This is the final chapter of this section, and it marks the loser sort of confronting Pennywise face to face in the house on Niebolt Street.
This to me cements the fact that the 7 of them were fated to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a really cool part with Bill's mother.
Yeah.
Who sees them all together and says, if I may.
Yeah.
This is again not my thoughts. There was a feeling in the air like static electricity, only somehow much more powerful, much more scary. She felt that if she touched any of them, she would receive a walloping shock. What's happened to them, she thought, dismayed. And perhaps she even opened her mouth to say something like that. But she felt relieved when the children were gone and her own puzzling, stuttering son had gone to his room and turned off the light.
Yeah,
There's some strange aura going on.
I think I wrote that down in word processor. Yeah. Just the idea of relief.
I saw your notes. I decided to steal it from you. Steal the spotlight.
It's just
the relief, though.
It is fascinating. Yeah, the idea of feeling threatened in a way by your own son. That's very interesting. So we basically find them banding together. They go to the house on Niebolt Street, and they're going to face their fears. And it's all 7 of them together. Wait, is Eddie there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He shows up at the house.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had to remind myself that. And so in the house itself, I kind of love it. It kind of reminds me, it takes me back to Salem's Lot a little bit. It's like the Marston house, you know? Just the idea that King sort of paints the inside of this house as being, you know, really genuinely upsetting. Like I always remember in Salem's Lot when Mark is in the house and he finds like photos of like men with their guts like ripped out and stuff like that, and it's just sort of this random aside, like he just finds just like here how it's in I have it in the cemetery.
You can't get that out of your head after that.
It's so creepy. And it's like I have this in the cemetery, so I won't say much, but like when they find the porno mag, you know, and Bev realizes who it was on the porno mag, very spooky. And, I know, and it's like, but moments like that are just so adjacent to kind of the action, but help really, and this is where I think they really failed in the movie last year, was the Niebolt Street house was more, it was
the
much
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
It was like gimmicky. It didn't, here it's like it is what the house is what it is in the sense that it's one of those houses where you walk in and you're like, oh, this is where squatters go and where they do drugs and where, you know, maybe they die, you know, like they pass out and they die here. It has that feel, but then also King is able to inject like every discarded bottle in the corner with a certain sense of danger and menace. And especially when you're 12 and you're in a place like that, like this abandoned house that is very unsavory just on its own. And then there's also an evil spirit that, hangs out there.
As a kid growing up in, like a suburb area that was really growing, I think we might have talked about that in the last episode. We were constantly exploring either houses that were under construction or kind of just on their way out. Mm-hmm. So for me, this particular chapter, I was able to really pull from that, just kind of sneaking around places where I'm not supposed to be. And Pennywise could pop up any second, of course.
I'll always remember when I was a kid, we snuck into an old mall that I used to hang out.
That sounds awesome.
Well,
I'm not kidding.
It wasn't like a big mall. It was more of like a strip mall kind of situation. Yeah. But it was designed in a way where it had like this interior hallway where everything was connected, and we thought it was so cool when we were kids. Then when I got older, it shut down. There was maybe one store that was open, but most of it was shut down. And there was an old movie theater where I'd seen a lot of movies, and it was shut down. So we knew a guy, and he showed us that the back door was unlocked, and we were able to sneak in because basically vagrants hung out there. And we went in, and it was the middle of the day. If you talk about daytime horror, it was the middle of the day, but everything was so dark inside. And we went in. I remember it's like we were just finding boxes full of doorknobs, and it was like, and it was this movie theater where I saw stuff when I was a kid, and it was disgusting and empty, but all the seats were still there.
Like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, and then we climbed up into the projection room, and that was the creepiest part because there was like blankets, like people had been sleeping there. Nobody was there, thank God. But there was this, somebody had graffitied on the wall of the projection room, like this naked woman, with a giant penis, and it was
progressive.
It was very unsettling, and just a very vulgar image, And I was probably 15 at the time, and it was something that was just very disturbing to me to be in that place and to feel like this place has been corrupted in a way, and that I should not be here. And we kind of walked through the whole area, but I was so uncomfortable after going into the movie theater because it's kind of like, I think I've maybe mentioned on the pod before, just I remember going to like a Chuck E. Cheese knockoff that I loved when I was a kid as an adult. Like my buddy and I went there just for fun, and we were like, God, this place is so depressing.
Yeah.
It's like we shouldn't be here. It's like this was magical when we were children, but now it's rotten. And it's and to me that is a very interesting dynamic, and something that I think King captures in the Neibolt Street house. So
I have a question for you guys.
Good.
And I do like this chapter as well, but this is something I felt when I was a kid, and I felt it rereading it this time. Do you feel like it almost has too many endings? Like this in a weird way feels like the climax to the book, like for when they're kids. But it's not, obviously, as we'll see when we get to the final section. There's like another confrontation with Pennywise. And I don't know, I feel that way. I also feel that way in the new movie that came out, which I really like. But I just wonder why this couldn't have been the final confrontation. Like, why did it have to be them fighting him once and then fighting it again later on? I don't know if any of you all felt that
for
way.
me, it's hard for me to put this in my misery section, but I understand where you're coming from. Because even looking back, sometimes I would actually think that this was the climactic bit when they're kids. Like this is the beginning of it, and then they end up going down. Okay, I don't want to spoil too much. I thought that the ending, the kid ending, and the Neibolt Street happens in a row,
back to back,
like back to back. Literally, it starts at Neibolt and ends somewhere else. I forgot that it actually does end, and like I think as you pointed out, where the section actually ends with them saying nothing happened for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Like this huge thing happens, and then nothing really happens again. Like I mean, I do enjoy this section for what it is, but this would probably be an instance where if you took it out, I don't think it really affects the climax of the book.
I think even too the way they say nothing much, the last sentence being whatever it is, nothing much happened for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's the end of summer, and that's over. I don't know. I've always had that feeling. Yeah, I like you, Justin. I don't have any issues with the writing itself or even the sequence itself. I still think it's suitably creepy.
Yeah, I've got some stuff in my cemetery section here. Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like a little Return of the King, multiple endings to me. But
or the Hobbit trilogy.
I feel like kind of too. It's a little bit of with going through the rooms, kind of is like a overarching of what's going on, because like you have the one room they go to where the mattress is ripped open and like the black
ghoulish or something
starts leaking out, and then they go to the next room, which is kind of anticlimactic because it's just, what is that thing called? A moose or something?
Oh yeah, the moose.
I was like, what the fuck is this about? I was kind of like, is this necessary? So then you have like that drop, and then you go back to the last room, which is the bathroom, where you get another glimpse of them talk, which I guess it was interesting because it kind of touches again like how they almost can see the true form of it, but they don't quite. But it just seems like that's King's overall march of this book of like having like this could have been the ending, but we keep going and then nothing happens, and then this is the ending. That's kind of what I felt like he was leading me up for another roller coaster.
Well, I feel like we already had the werewolf experience. We've already had the Nebel experience. So I feel like it's a little redundant.
I can see,
combination.
I can see the redundancy.
Yeah.
I guess,
but again, there's still some stuff here that creeps me out. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I guess I'll just say that. I guess this is like sort like when you say that this feels like the ending, I almost feel like maybe this was King's initial idea for the ending, and then he's like, no, this wouldn't finish it off.
It wouldn't.
And I think that for me, it's maybe the ending that as readers we probably expected.
Yeah.
Like a very traditional standoff with, the slingshots, the silver slugs, like the confrontation in the house that he set up as being this evil place. And then I kind of love that then he gets really, mild spoiler alert.
Oh, they're spacey.
Metaphysical.
Yeah.
Once we get into the latter part of it. And so I almost feel like this exists maybe to satisfy the traditional climax that maybe viewers might have wanted, this straight confrontation.
No spoilers, but maybe like a Dark Tower situation here. We're a literal. This is the ending if you want it to be the ending, and here's what actually happens.
Yeah, and
I'll say no more.
I kind of dig that idea that just he gave us this, and it's a very it's a triumphant moment for everyone for the most part, and but then what we get later is much more complicated and a little bit darker and weirder and controversial as we will learn next week. So
I'd say it's weirder as well. Yeah,
It doesn't wrap up so quick, like nicely, like they do in the movies. It's kind of like you thought it was going to be this.
Yeah. And so, but basically what emerges is the werewolf, because the werewolf likes to party in this house. And Bev, they basically put a slug through its nose, which I always thought was a very visceral image.
I can't say enough about this werewolf in a good way, because I remember there was this video collection that Vincent Price would introduce. It was called Creepy Classics, and he would sit there by a fireplace and introduce these old trailers to old 50s and 60s movies. So I grew up with watching this scene that they're from I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Yeah.
Which this werewolf is kind of supposed to look like. This old Michael Landon, I'm wearing like a Letterman jacket, but I'm a werewolf. It sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But as a kid, it really freaked me out. Mm-hmm. So I always love this idea that King used that as opposed to using the old Lon Chaney Wolfman or any other famous Wolfman.
Yeah.
I love the imagery here. But there's something on the jacket that I'll be talking about in the misery section. But, that's a teaser.
We'll get there.
But I wanted to do. I can vividly see this werewolf as the Michael Landon werewolf, and I love it. I love the imagery.
Final thoughts on the bullseye,
Dan.
I just want to say the bullseye is probably my favorite chapter. I mean, among a section of many good chapters, and just great characters all around, and lots of chills, lots of spills, and I wish all books could be this good. And I just want to thank you again for having me on the podcast. It's a real treat every time.
We should also say that Bev does make contact with one of the slugs. One of the slugs misses, the other one does.
Yes, it does. It does get into her hand. I think I have that in my cemetery. So we're going to wrap up our heroes and villains sort of recap section by talking about the interlude here. The fourth interlude, I think the final interlude, yes?
This is maybe not my favorite, but the psychological implications here are pretty great.
I know. I think that this chapter is short. I love that it begins with Mike being drunk off his ass writing. He calls it "fuck drunk," I think, which is a very funny phrase to me.
He's a little, slovenly.
And I kind of love it. But this is maybe probably the least impactful chapter in terms of interludes. But it has a larger implication, and it really speaks to the whole idea. Because I think what all these interludes have been doing is how it's not just about the old events, the old things that Pennywise has had, the havoc he's wreaked in this town, but it's about the ambivalence of the town, and the ways that the behavior has almost been normalized in the town, and that's kind of it's almost illustrated here in very blunt terms.
Oh my god!
Which is basically an old man named Egbert Thorogood who
hold on,
he pops up in my
incredible name.
But he pops up in my pound cake later.
Oh Lord! Oh yes. Oh my lord. This name is the ultimate name.
It is an intense name. Egbert Thorogood. He's basically the only person who was alive at a place called the Silver Dollar many years before.
What's the name of that place?
Silver Dollar. Silver. Hi ho.
Silver slugs.
Hi ho,
Or
silver.
maybe eyes that look like silver dollars.
Yes.
And
I think things are connected here.
and there is a man named Claude Hero who basically gets in a union dispute with some of the local workers and then shows up in the Silver Dollar one day and just takes an axe to everybody, about all the union guys who are playing cards in the back, and he basically slaughters them, basically dismantles them piece by piece as everyone else in the bar continues to drink and talk like nothing is wrong.
Favorite part of this whole
You love it?
It's so bizarre,
Yeah.
but it speaks to the Derry attitudes of indifference perfectly.
Yep. And it's Egbert Thorogood's description when he's basically saying like, well, why did you just sit and let this happen? He goes, it was politics.
Yeah.
It's none of my business.
Does he say like working men don't mix in?
Yep.
And,
Yep.
It'll get worse if we do.
Yep. I love that. So basically it's just kind of a short and sweet story about, as these horrendous acts of violence happen, literally right next to the public, they turn a blind eye and just go on with their
Well, it's
day,
fascinating.
so.
They casually let this happen.
Yeah.
But then, like clockwork, at midnight, they all go and lynch him.
hang.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And of course, it's the only lynching I think that they said ever happened in Derry,
Yes.
but it was never reported.
Yeah.
They just all like the same people. They went drinking at other places. Was it the Bloody Bucket and a few
Yep.
other
Yeah.
places?
Great names.
Had time to think. Yeah, I was proud of that one. And then they had time to like think about it, but not really think about it. They were just like drinking and like, oh hey, I think we should probably like kill this dude.
And
That was an offhand comment.
at this point, because I think after Hero does the massacre, he even sits down and it's just kind of
He's just
like,
chilling.
what have I done? Like,
Yep.
It's,
Well, I mean, I feel like what I love about it is that, it could have just been another chapter where somebody is propelled to an act of intense violence for reasons that, seem insane. I mean, almost like the when they kill the Bradley gang, it's everybody doing it, but it's more so just these people drawn to committing this act of violence, as a community. Here we get the added sort of layer that that there is the indifference to it,
There's
and
the
then,
action and the indifference.
the indifference, and then like the retribution
Right.
of that is hollow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not even like they care.
It's almost performative.
It's performative. It's
Yeah.
literally the word I was looking for.
It really is.
Like my voice squeaked a little because I got so excited.
Excitement.
It was like it's performative, and it's almost just kind of inevitable, which is I think a word I've been using a lot. There's this whole idea that like Pennywise maybe he has these arcs of tragedy that he's kind of unleashing on these people, and they're going through the motions.
What's fun is I think that like also it took 5 minutes before anyone actually did anything. Like I wonder if the progression, they would have just kept probably sitting there drinking all night if the sheriff hadn't showed up or whoever did the law. That's crazy to me. Or the
It's
guy
crazy.
who kicks the head just like nonchalantly, like literally.
Oh, yeah, I
That's,
forgot about
like
that.
one of my favorite parts.
I think the layout of these interludes is also just perfect.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you had this one first,
Yeah.
that wouldn't make any sense, right? If you had the Bradley gang's third or fourth,
Right.
like the way he's laid it out, it's not necessarily in
Right.
chronological order, but it's in terms of the narrative, it makes perfect sense.
One final thing here as we're wrapping up this section is we haven't really talked about the framing devices for all the chapters, which is basically these are all memories that are surfacing as the losers are in modern day, i.e. the 80s, hanging out at the library getting tanked, and they're all recollecting these things. And a couple notable things happen. They're in my misery section, including them finding a certain loser's head in the refrigerator.
Bits,
and bits and bits and bits. So I think that's kind of the most notable thing that happens during those sections. But rest assured, we will be discussing them in later sections. Final thoughts on the fourth interlude.
I'm a fan. I'm happy it's here.
Happy it's here. I'm
Happy to see it. Happy to read it.
I'm happy Dan Caffrey's on the podcast.
I'm just happy to be here, guys.
Very
when my
cool.
agent said, Dan, do you want to get back in the Losers Club? I said, yeah, I have to. It's great.
Dan, baby, you got to get back in the Losers Club.
I said, and then I went on Twitter and I said, relax, guys. It's going to be great. Trust me.
I love it. So now that we have exhausted our heroes and villains, we have recap where we were. We're going to take a step back and kind of dig into the prose a little bit, talk about what we loved, what we didn't love, and what made us laugh. And we're going to begin that by linking up with Annie Wilkes for a little round of misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slept away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling a little miserable. Why? Because I had to read a couple of sections of this book that made me feel a little miserable. How about you guys? Did you have any?
Did you feel some misery?
I feel a little misery.
I would say, most of mine would come, I think, with the, like you're saying, those sort of preludes to all the chapters where they're adults and they connect to it. And I understand what King is trying to do there. He's trying to connect the future or the present to the past. And so much of this book is about being able to recall these old memories. However, my problem with it is that all they do is explain everything that's about to happen, and not in a way that's foreshadowing, you know what I mean? In a way that is just like flat out saying what it is. Like, for instance, the smoke hole, Richie says, "We saw it come," he says to Mike. "We saw it come, didn't we? You and me. Or was it just me?" He grabs Mike's hand, which lies on the table. "Did you see it too, Mikey, or was it just me? Did you see it? The forest fire? The crater?" It just feels a little cheesy and expository and And once again, like, the adults are always, they're in a library getting loaded, and it just gets a little bit old after a while. I mean, I don't know. It's nothing so egregious as to like ruin a chapter for me. It's just something I can that I could do without that device as we cycle through that. Did you guys feel the same way?
Yeah,
I get that. I didn't have that written down, my misery, because I think I've read and seen these iterations so many times where I'm like, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't recall the first time I read it if I felt that way, but I don't.
I had, I guess kind of similarly, I mentioned this earlier, but it's just the Bill worship drives me a little crazy. Yeah. And there was one moment that almost felt kind of meta is when they're in the smoke hole and Richie says to Mike, he's just like, "It's me and you, huh, Mike?" And he goes, "I thought it would be Bill." I thought for sure it would be Bill. And I wondered if it was like a meta moment because I remember when I was a kid, I was like, oh, like Bill's not gonna do it. Okay. Yeah. Like that's surprising. And so it's just kind of but it's a recurring thing where everyone is always like, well, Bill's the best. And it's a little bit annoying.
The alliteration's there for Bill's the best, I guess.
Yeah, Bill's the best. Bill the best. Big Bill. Big Bill.
It'd be great if we could have Chris Pratt play Bill.
I know, too late.
Guy who's always right, just does everything right.
Well, the person I always saw as Bill was obviously James McAvoy.
He just rolled his eyes for all the listeners.
I have a bit of a gripe. I think King
has
done a tremendous job in terms of people and places and years with pop culture when it comes to it. Something stuck out to me, and I did some research, and I found out I was right, and King was dead wrong.
Uh-oh.
Let me read this little passage here. Mike had his thumbs hooked into his belt like Steve McQueen and Wanted Dead or Alive, nothing moving but his eyes. This period takes place in July 1958. The Wanted Dead or Alive TV series did not debut until September of that year.
Oh my
what is
God.
that all about, King?
Oh my God.
I almost put down the book and said, I'm not reading anymore. I can't trust this guy anymore.
You are fired from this podcast.
All my trust is gone for Stephen King.
My trust is gone for
Stevie.
Justin Gerber because you have officially evolved into the comic book guy.
No. Actually, it was wrong.
Next that ponytail.
I'll tell you what. Get ready.
Aisha, do you have any misery?
I have to say, okay, so I touched on this earlier with the idea of like sometimes him taking too long to like describe things, and Dan kind of touched on it briefly too. Another thing I had an issue with was his description of like Bev having these like back and forth moments of like shooting and not shooting, and like it just seemed like he would create this strong character and then immediately like peg her down a few paces and make her seem weak and indecisive. And like I understand I feel like this is his idea of what a teenage girl goes through, I guess. But it just came off like some points I hated Bev because I was like, suck it up. Like you just said you were going to do it. Now you're wishy-washy, and like you can't be wishy-washy and strong at the same time.
Yeah.
Like her character just seems sometimes muddled to me, and seems like his attempt to he doesn't know what a teenage girl thinks about.
Right.
Maybe he asked, does he have a daughter? He has a daughter.
He does, yeah.
Maybe he asked her once. Wait, how old was she? I don't know.
Once.
Asked somebody, but like it just seems...
Naomi, get over here.
Yeah.
What's the story with you being indecisive all the time?
Tell me about this.
Well, I'll just say along those lines, I have a bit in Pound Cake as well, but I also put this one in misery. I just think that like the way King describes her sometimes borders on.
There's always like panties just sticking out of her jeans or something like that.
It's stuff like that, and then just this sentence.
lecherous.
This sentence, my eyes just rolled back into my head so far. I couldn't see for a week. Page 889. She nodded, bit her full underlip. A girl of 11 who was tall for her age and simply beautiful.
Just simply beautiful.
Come on, dude. This is like
There kept being those brief tidbits though that he kept doing that, and I'm like, I get it.
She's hot.
She's a hot young child.
I have one.
hot.
I have one in pound cake. It's unfortunate.
Well, and I think also too, I mean, it's like the grossness of the gender dynamics, but also like it's just very purple writing. You know, it's just very like all shucks, gee whiz. You know,
and at times he takes that where he's entering like the minds of the kids, and that makes more sense to me if you're going to do that. Yeah. But if it's just the narrator describing it, it gets a little, like you said, Randall, a little eye-rolly at times.
I always remember the one Mel had from Firestarter where it was like a piece of apple pie without a slice of cheese is like a smooch without a squeeze. And it's like that. It's not like folksy writing that.
Put that on my tombstone.
I do have one more misery.
Yeah, bring it.
If we're still going.
We are.
So this goes to the interlude where he's describing like the lumberjack barons basically, and how the ancestors had raped the land. And I don't know if just King, this makes me think of like a lot of men who don't know like the anatomy of a female and like what the hymen is and what it does and all this other stuff. But he says at one point, let me find it. It's on like page 882 of the first edition.
First edition, yeah.
It was their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers who actually spread the legs of the forest north of Derry and Bangor and raped those green-gowned virgins with their axes and peavies? Peavies. They cut and slashed and stripped, timbered, and never looked back. They tore the hymen of those great forests open when Grover Cleveland was president and had pretty well finished the job by the time Woodrow Wilson had his first stroke. And then he goes into more of like raping the forest.
Yeah, it's like a bit much. Yeah,
it's like, did the forest bleed and I was able to what?
Really? Was that really necessary?
Yeah, it was just a lot. I was like, okay, so yes, he raped the forest. They raped the forest.
I think he had a dare. The dare was probably, okay, how long is this book going to be? 1,100 pages? Okay. I want you to include a hymen and Grover Cleveland in the same sentence.
Go.
That Peter Straub made that bet with him.
Stephen. Hyman and Grover Cleveland.
Dan, do you have any miseries?
No, but I just want to reiterate again, even when talking about bad parts, I love being on this podcast. So,
oh God,
thanks for
this is like the rule of 7.
Do you want to do the werewolf?
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is in my misery.
Think about Randall when I thought about this part.
It's in my misery.
Again,
too.
I can't say I really do love the image of the Michael Landon teenage werewolf in like a Letterman jacket. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, here's the bit.
It's a great scene.
Of course, I know this is like the height of terror, by the way. Written on the back of its black and orange high school jacket were the words...
Okay.
Justin is losing his shit, by the way.
I don't remember this, but I remember
get ready.
Where are they?
Don't laugh, because there's free... wait till the third sentence to laugh, okay?
I'll mute it.
I'm already laughing.
Were the words Derry High School Killing Team... Below this, the name Pennywise, and in the center, a number 13. Like, weird. That's so lame. Like, why? Why?
Put 19 there.
That would be great. If it wouldn't be my misery section if you put 19.
Ever since I've known Randall, like you've always had this axe to grind about like the wisecracking supernatural entity. Like that's how I know you. And now Justin hates that because you've always talked about how you hate those kind of jokes, like in horror novels.
I'll always remember
creepy kids making jokes too.
Yes, I'll always remember the summer. I had a summer several years ago where my buddies and I just watched like every Stephen King movie, and we would just we would watch like the miniseries. You know, we'd like spend all day watching the Salem Slot miniseries, and I remember we were watching the Shining miniseries, which God almighty, what a fucking torturous process that is. But I just remember it broke me. Like, I think my real axe, my axe really started to grind was this. There's a moment at the end of that when the guy who like owned the hotel, like, cause he's a character in the miniseries, but not the Shining, like the Jack Nicholson one. And he just pops up and it's like, he just says something just kind of like, cock-a-doodle-doo. You know?
Oh, Lord.
Like right during the climax of the whole thing. And I'm just like, fuck off, be scary.
Well, here's the thing, like that can work because I think about the Kubrick adaptation when that guy is standing in the middle of the hallway and goes, "Great party, isn't it?"
But that's restrained.
Yes, it works.
Yeah.
He's not like screaming
it's
jokes.
Sarcastic. Yeah, it's almost like dead, you know?
Yeah,
I think
it's not
it's one day,
it's not
if you're saying
sarcastic.
if you're saying an over the top line and you're also saying it like ooh wee, like it's not going to be good. You know?
I have one last one, and it's my biggest misery, maybe of this book, and especially of the miniseries. I fucking hate this section.
Oh wow!
It's when Mike opens the fridge and Stan Uris's head is inside.
Yep.
It's a little creepier in the book because it stands. It's more that it stands child head.
Yeah,
it's not his adult head. In the miniseries, it's the adult head.
Richard Mazur.
Yeah, it's Richard Mazur, and who's a great actor.
In the book, it's like stuffed with feathers.
Yeah,
right?
it's stuffed with feathers.
That imagery is fine, but it keeps going.
And so, like, I'll just say here, I'll just read the first thing. So he opens it. He stumbles over one of the chairs, almost falls, and takes his hands away. It is still there. Stan Uris's severed head behind Mike's six-pack of Bud Light. The head not of a man, but of an 11-year-old boy. The mouth is open in a soundless scream, but Mike can see neither teeth nor tongue because the mouth has been stuffed with full of feathers.
This is fine so far.
I know. This would have been okay, but then it keeps going. So those eyes roll in his direction, and the head's lips begin to squirm around the mouth full of feathers. It is trying to speak, perhaps trying to deliver prophecy, like the oracle in a Greek play. Just thought I'd join you, Mike, because you can't win without me. You can't win without me, and you know it, don't you? You might have had a chance if all of me had shown up, but I just couldn't stand the strain on my all-American brain. If you see what I mean, Jelly Bean. All of the six, so on and so forth. And then he starts, of course, getting racist. So it is it's just so stupid when you have the head start talking.
Yeah.
Like, why does it
Wouldn't
need
it have been creepy
talk?
if he just saw it for a moment and then slammed the fridge door shut?
Yeah, and then open it and it was gone. Even just do that or keep it in there. I don't know.
I just kept thinking about how is it talking with feather stuff in it.
I know. And then it rolls out.
Yes.
And then
I don't trust King to make any sense after my Wanted Dead or Alive TV series error. I mean, at this point, anything goes.
You got to let that go. If you bring that up again on the pod, you are officially fired.
Next week, I just keep bringing it up.
You fired him several times today.
I know, and it's the problem.
Why are you firing me?
The problem is I don't have the power to fire you.
This is an unfortunate democracy we have. No, who's going to fire who on this podcast?
But I will continue to fire you in my powerless way.
Okay.
So that's all the misery I have. Any more miseries?
One bit.
Well,
I do, of course, have
bits and bits.
Richie's imitations are always there. But I will say, this doesn't quite belong at Pound Cake, so I'll read this description of Ben and his weight issues. They arrived at 29 Nebo Street around 10 that morning. Bill riding Richie double on silver. Ben with his ample buttocks spilling over either side of the sagging seat on his rally. I did write good alliteration though.
Must
other
you?
than that,
Yeah,
must you, Stephen?
He loves fetishizing Ben's ass. Like, he talks about it.
sweet
He talks about
ass.
so much in this book. Like the one about like his hips jiggling like a girl's or whatever. It's like really. It's real
I
extra.
got creeped out a few times.
Oh man.
Yes. Well,
I've heard like tales from another kid, or whatever, like tales from Ben's ass. And it's like,
well, now that Annie has hobbled our knees or our ankles with this horrible prose, let us hobble our way into the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Welcome. This is the cemetery.
hi, I'm Randall Colt.
Here's your grave with your name on it.
Ooh, do you?
This is the section, as you know, because if you're on the fourth episode of a podcast about the book It, you probably listened to the
Or if you
previous
listen to our
ones.
other 30 book episodes.
This is where we talk about the stuff that actually kind of scared us, and I think there's a lot here.
There's a lot.
So, but let's like what was maybe choose your number one, and then we'll get into the get into the other stuff. Who wants to start with their number one scariest moment?
I've got mine.
Bring it.
Queued up. If it's okay.
Yes.
Ready to go. Okay. I mentioned earlier, this is after Patrick Hockstetter has gotten attacked by the flying leeches. It's real short. And it has emerged and is now talking to him. Hello and goodbye, a bubbling voice said from inside the running tallow of its features, and Patrick tried to scream again. He didn't want to die. As the only real person, he wasn't supposed to die. If he did, everyone else in the world would die with him. The man-shape laid hold of his leech-encrusted arms and began to drag him away toward the barrens. His blood-stained book carrier bumped and thumped along beside him, its strap still twisted around his neck. Patrick, still trying to scream, lost consciousness. He awoke only once, when in some dark, smelly, drippy hell where no light shone, no light at all, it began to feed.
I had that too.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Oh, no! Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but that is terrifying.
Yeah.
So that is a very good one.
We get reminded of Patrick's solipsism or whatever you call it, which is creepy. This idea of it trying to be human and possibly be Bev's dad and not being able to is creepy. And then just the idea of waking up while an animal is feeding on you is just.
Oh yeah, that's so
I hope to feel it one day.
Yeah, yeah.
You got one?
That one's
I
mine.
need a moment to choose my favorite.
Okay,
No, that's what I was trying to do. Okay, I'll say this also takes place. This is much more of a visceral experience. It's supposed to be psychological. Our good friend Patrick Hockstetter is back again. This is about one of the leech attack itself. So
yes.
Another settled on his right eye. Patrick closed it, but that did no good. He felt a brief hot flare as a thing's sucker poked through his eyelid and began to suck the fluid out of his eyeball. Patrick felt his eye collapse in its socket and he screamed again. A leech flew into his mouth when he did and roosted on his tongue. Anything with kneecaps and eyeballs, I'm out.
It's rough.
Like it was with Patrick Hockstetter, my heart out. I can't deal with him. It's disgusting.
I'll go back. I referenced this one earlier, and this was the one. And I think you'll notice a similar maybe motif because I think my scariest moment, last one, was in the Kirsch house, and it had to do. There was many moments in the Kirsch house last week that really freaked me out, but I was really unsettled by like the painting of Jesus that winked or stuck its tongue out, And so here, when they're in the house on Newbold Street, this section really freaks me out. In the other corner, wet and swollen, was a digest-sized girly book. The woman on the cover was bent over a chair, her skirt up in the back to show the tops of her fishnet hose and her black panties. The picture did not look particularly sexy to Ben, nor did it embarrass him that Beverly had also glanced at it. Moisture had yellowed the woman's skin and humped the cover in ripples that became wrinkles on her face. Her salacious gaze had become the leer of a dead whore. Years later, as Ben recounted this, Bev suddenly cried out, startling all of them. They were not so much listening to this story as reliving it. It was her, Bev yelled. Mrs. Kirsch, it was her. As Ben looked, the young/old crone on the girly book cover winked at him. She wriggled her fanny in an obscene come-on. Cold all over, yet sweating, Ben looked away. And I think what really emphasizes the scary part of it is that he's 12. He's a kid. Yes. Or 11. And it's like, and it's the perversion, I think, that scares me. And also just the idea that Kirsch is sort of, a part of the Pennywise universe. You know what I mean? I know that sounds stupid.
Like a nun is with the Conjuring.
I know, right? It sounds stupid, but it's like maybe in a way like Mrs. Kirsch is like Bob Gray. Like maybe it's a figure and it's a human manifestation that he has latched onto that was once a person. And that concept to me, and maybe it's kind of the idea of doppelgangers, because doppelgangers really freak me out. It's that kind of thing is very spooky to me. The idea of somebody's identity being taken away from them and used in a way that is not them. That's one of my biggest horror things. And so the idea that there is this recurring figure obviously Bev saw this person years before she encountered her, as an adult. Yeah. That's very scary to me. The idea that maybe, to quote True Detective, time is a flat circle.
Oh, Matthew McConaughey.
Very spooky to me, and also I just it's the perversion aspect too. Just like I said last week, with the idea that the Jesus statue sticking or the painting sticking its tongue out is a very unsettling image to me because there's a perverse quality to it. It's the same way here. It's something that children should not be seeing, and it's being perverted even further than it already is. So
for Mrs. Kirsch, I also want to point this out. There is obviously a lot of us grew up with scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah.
And the idea of the ultimate quote-unquote witch version of Mrs. Kirsch, it appears in one of those scary stories, the illustration by Stephen Gamble.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's this woman, it's one of the stories about a witch, believe it or not. But the woman, I think, has like wooden legs or wooden arms, but she has like this kind of hollow-looking face and just like these black eyes that look like buttons.
Yeah, that rings
kind
a
of
bell.
That is what I think of when I think about Mrs. Kirsch, and that's what I think of when I think about this girly mag.
Yeah.
The illustration.
Ugh, so
Great
gross.
stuff.
Aisha, have you figured out your number one?
No, because you guys have taken most of mine, and then the other ones are kind of some of my cemetery scenes would be like the concept of when like Mike is getting attacked by Henry, like the interactions with Henry Bowers. I feel like sometimes like the build up for it, like it was so, because it's so real, because this is an actual person doing this to them as opposed to like this evil entity that like can change forms and is magical. It was almost more terrifying, and like I don't have the specific pages marked for them, but like each time there was like for Mike, for Eddie, like when it got so close to like being like I'm going to die, or even Bev when she's hiding in the car and like he's right there, is just enough. That was enough for a terrifying sequence. And for me, sometimes realistic horror or like realism is
definitely
way more terrifying.
Well, we can all connect to it. It's
Definitely.
harder to connect. It's easier to connect to that than to connect to some entity that came from other space.
Yeah, and we talked about that a couple episodes ago. The whole concept that one of the real the powerful aspects of this book is the way that it can balance the supernatural terror with the terror that is inevitable just in daily life, and very, very creepy. Other things that you want to share?
I've got a lot of little hot spots.
I do too. I'll throw one out. The whole Patrick Hockstetter death is fucked up, but I'll say that this one line just kind of seared itself into my brain, which was after he gets bit by one of the leeches, it had made a painless dime-sized hole in his arm. And I literally was reading this, and our change jar was nearby, and I took a dime and I put it on my arm, and that's bigger than you think it is.
Yeah.
That is a large hole in your arm.
Ugh.
And like when you think about a hole in your flesh, like that is so unsettling to me. And so definitely one of that whole death sequence, it still was as creepy as it was to me as it was when I was a kid.
I'll close out the Hockstetter sequence, I think, with just another bit of violence here. He could feel the leech inside his mouth swelling up, and he opened his jaws because the only coherent thought he had left was that it must not burst in there. It must not.
Yeah.
But it did. Oh, I heard that, Aisha. That was Patrick ejected a huge spray of blood and parasite flesh-like vomit. He fell down the gravelly dirt and began to roll over and over, still screaming. Little by little, the sound of his own screams began to seem faint far away. Just disgusting.
Woof. Dan, do you have any more?
No, I was just gonna say just the idea of the leeches like exploding once they're full of his blood, and the one in the mouth was just like ugh, to me.
I'll say that.
I'm trying to think if there's any. It's so funny because I think in terms of horror, Patrick Hockstetter chapter just like overwhelms everything else in this book for me. Or not the book in this section. Like even though there's lots of scary stuff, when I think of like what's eked me out, that's just like always what's going to come to mind, you know?
Right.
Oh God, there is something else.
What's that?
Really shows how much of a psycho Patrick is. It's after Henry leaves, and Bev watches Patrick go over to the fridge and says, "Oh God, this is disturbing." Patrick began to hum and sway back and forth in front of the rusty old refrigerator.
Yeah.
Like that, isn't that? Just think about that. Let that sink in for a second.
It's very strange.
Even when he just stood there with his pants still around, he like took the time to put his books together in his bag and put it around his neck, and he's still bleeding from his mouth, but he's not really caring. And then his pants are like he didn't. That just like was kind of a little disquieting as well because it's like he. I don't know. I feel like I'd pull my pants up first.
Well, thank God. That's the difference between us and Patrick Hockstetter.
Well, I wrote down the sequence where they describe him killing his younger brother. I'm not going to read it because I don't think I need to.
No,
it's really disturbing. But I'll just say that there is a line where they mention that as he's killing it, it farts, and it's just like that
makes
thing.
it real.
Well, yeah, and like Dan and I, we've joked a lot about like King's use of farts in books. But
in this very book.
Well, yeah, but in this section specifically, I'm like, oh, that's the one where like it just really makes it pathetic and sad and disgusting and horrible.
Well, yeah,
like,
and it's funny because I was debating whether to put that in pound cake, and I'm like, no, because it's actually really effective and morbid. So yeah,
I have like we mentioned this earlier. Aisha, you were talking about the distance that grows in the smoke hole between them, and I found that very unsettling. And I wrote that Richie looked around. He saw the circle of stones with the fire smoldering within, fuming out clouds of smoke. Across the way, he saw Mike sitting cross-legged like a totem carved from mahogany, staring at him through the fire with his smoke-reddened eyes. Except Mike was better than 20 yards away, and Bill was even farther away on Richie's right. The underground clubhouse was now at least the size of a ballroom. And like ballroom, that's massive.
Yes.
So that's like that was a very striking moment for me.
Does anybody, we mentioned this earlier, the first time Mike sees Pennywise.
Oh, yeah. I thought I
I've
wrote
got
that
it.
down. Yeah, bring it
I
up.
got it. This is
Okay.
some great stuff here.
I thought I had written it
So
down.
again, Mike's in the marching band or in a marching band, and they're going down the street, and this happens. Somehow that clown looking at him, smiling his red smile, his white-gloved hand penduluming slowly back and forth, that had been worse than having Henry Bowers and the rest after him. Ever so much worse. And then Mike explains. Then we were past. We marched up Main Street Hill, and I saw him again, handing out balloons to kids. Except a lot of them didn't want to take them. Some of the little ones were crying. I couldn't figure out how he could have gotten up there so fast. I thought to myself that there must be two of them. You know, both of them dressed the same way, a team. But then he turned around and waved to me again, and I knew it was him. It was the same man.
Yeah.
Oof.
I hate that. It's so creepy. Well, I hate it in a good way.
Yeah, I hate it in a good way.
It's very creepy. I also was really responded to when they were in the Neibolt Street house and they were basically fighting Pennywise. And when Pennywise emerged from the drain pipe, I just thought this was a good piece of writing that also kind of got under my skin a little. Something exploded out of the drain pipe.
Yeah,
Ben, trying to recall that first confrontation later, could only remember a silvery orange shifting shape. It was not ghostly, it was solid. And he sensed some other shape, some real and ultimate shape behind it. But his eyes could not grasp what he was seeing, not precisely. And I guess, like, I love the use of the word shape. He uses it 3 times, like, boom, 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 right after each other. And I actually think it's really effective in that way.
I'll say if people are reading along for the first time, and I should keep that in mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shape.
Yeah. I dig that. And so,
Indefinite.
and then I also we talked about it a lot earlier, but just the concept of the murder and the silver dollar and everyone just kind of sitting idly by, you know? And, but I love the quote here from Thorogood. He says, we knew, but it didn't seem to matter. It was like politics in a way. Like that, like town business. Best let people who understand politics take care of that, and people who understand town business take care of that. Such things be best done if working men don't mix in. It's just like, it's like the justification there is like so unsettling.
I have some really interesting, they kind of just, I think it's a deliberate gloss over about the inner workings of Eddie's mother here. She hugged him, but carefully, so as not to hurt his broken arm, or dislodge any loose bone fragments so they could run an evil race around his bloodstream and then lodge in his heart what mother would kill her own son with love. And Eddie hugged her back. Like, what is going on in her mind? Because this is after Eddie's kind of, quote unquote, fought back. And I wonder if would actually like be willing to kill her own son too, you know? It gets just kind of glossed over.
Like saving him though, like from himself.
Yes.
That's even creepier.
Good stuff.
Well, now that we've sufficiently freaked ourselves out.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, you got more.
Well, here's the thing. I know you don't like to talk about animals, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Thank you, please.
I really held back.
But
I appreciate
we didn't talk about
I appreciate it.
Mike's dog.
and
how Mike's Mr. Chips and how he dies. That is tough to read.
Yes.
How
Do you
Henry
want to
kills
read
him.
some?
I do not want to read it.
Okay.
Not even I want to read it.
Yeah,
But it's a
still
torturous,
elongated.
sad,
it's so
and
long. Yeah.
don't get me wrong, highly
they
effective.
mention it again
But
later though too when they talk about the beans, and he's like, and that's when he actually came up with the idea for the beans.
Yeah.
Sunday night. And I'm like, I almost got over Mr. Chips, and now.
Yeah. No, I'll say that.
goodbye, Mr. Chips,
I appreciate you caring for my sensitivities in this
and my
sense.
own, to be fair.
I cried
Yes.
a little bit for.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the description of Jimmy Cullum's body is disgusting. too.
Oh, that's
but anyway,
very gross.
we've talked about that. So
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of affective horror in this section. I like a lot.
I agree.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, final cemeteries. Do you want to dig up any more graves, Dan Caffrey?
I think it's time to get the hell out of the cemetery.
Frankly, I'm
Lock
feeling a little spooked. I think we're going to have Hank the Pit lead us out of the cemetery.
He's not. Sorry, I don't do a good dog bark. He's not barking.
Barks. Let's venture into a place we like to call the word processor of the gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Hello. Welcome to the word processor of the gods. My name is Rockin' Randall Colburn. Oh, wait, I'm stuttering Randall Colburn. Well, during these episodes at least. This is where we highlight good writing. And I have one that I want to throw out right away because I love it. It's a piece of dialogue from Moose Sadler. Maybe my favorite character in all of it. I'm just kidding.
Cool.
But he has, I love this line when he's getting the shit kicked out of him in the rock fight. Somebody hits him in the back with a rock and he goes, "You hit from behind, Yellow Belly." Moose screamed, "You fucking dirty fighter." I just love that phrase. You fucking dirty fighter.
dirty
And
fighter?
dirty fighter is one word, which just makes me happy. And Yellow Belly is also just great 50s insult. So that's all. I want to kick off with that. That was the only one I had.
it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Pretty cool book.
Anyone want to take the reins here? What really landed for you?
This goes back to the Mr. Keen encounter. Eddie wished more than anything else that he was down in the barrens with his friends around him. The thought of a monster, some great monster lurking under the city where he had been born and where he had grown up using the sewers and drains to creep from place to place, that was a frightening thought. And the thought of actually fighting that creature, of taking it on, was even more frightening. But somehow this was worse. How could you fight a grown-up who said it wasn't going to hurt when you knew it was? Wait, you might have actually read some of that earlier.
Just that line.
Okay, cool. Okay. I remember that part. But how could you fight a grown-up who asks you funny questions, said obscurely ominous things like, "This has gone on long enough"? And almost idly, in a kind of side thought, Eddie discovered one of his childhood's great truths. Grown-ups are the real monsters, he thought. When did you that's all I'll say here. I was going to have the whole other section, but there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, that's to me some of the most effective writing in this whole section. I wrote all that down. And to me, it just really resonated because I feel like it's not only a running theme in King's work. It's just sort of I think a really key part when people in literature write about children. I think that's always that pivotal moment, and it's capturing that moment, the disillusionment, that moment when you take the step out of pure innocence and you realize that you're not always in good hands. I think such a pivotal moment in any kid's life, and I think. More than any other King book, I think, is he captures that here.
This and the body.
Yeah, that body as well. Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
But my thing has always been, as a child, you're told that everybody grows up, but then as you age, you realize everybody grows older, but you don't necessarily grow up.
Right.
And I think that's a harsh truth to realize when you get older.
Good shit. Aisha, what do you got?
It's a little bit longer, but
That's okay.
It's at the beginning of the smoke hole where Richie's he's postulating poetically about something. I fucking don't know. I think it was like the energy of childhood. And Richie had felt mad, exhilarating kind of energy growing in the room. He had done cocaine 9 or 10 times over the last couple years, at parties mostly. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit because he goes and talks about doing drugs as a disc jockey, but he talks about this feeling was pure, more of a mainline high. He thought he recognized the feeling from his childhood when he had felt it every day and had come to take it merely as a matter of course. He supposed that if he had ever thought about that deep-running aquifer of energy as a kid, he could not recall that he ever had. He would have simply dismissed it as a fact of life, something that would always be there, like the color of his eyes or his disquieting hammer toes. Well, that turned out to be true, hadn't turned out to be true. The energy you drew on so extravagantly when you were a kid, the energy you thought you would never exhaust itself, that slipped away somewhere between 18 and 24 to be replaced by something much duller, something as bogus as a coke high. And he goes on and talks a little bit more, and then he goes into like kind of like the idea of childhood, that wonderment, that imagination slipping out of you slowly, like balloons losing their air. And I like that balloons are constantly referenced, even when it's not just Pennywise holding a balloon.
Yeah.
But like that just like point of there where like they talk about how they're worried that magic has slipped away from them and they're not going to be able to be strong enough to defeat it at this time. And Richie kind of touches on that whole idea of like, and this goes back again to what I was talking about earlier, where they talk about faith and power. Like, as you get older, you start to lose that sense of imagination, that sense of wonderment, that sense of faith, those things that give you power and hold you together. And you're kind of just left as an emptier, duller shell sometimes of yourself.
Yeah, I have that section too. And the line that really hits me is the final line, which is, it all happened while you were asleep, maybe like a visit from the tooth fairy.
Yeah.
Like just that just kind of sums up all that, like, to me, that beautiful writing that came before it, which I also had written down as well. Dan, what do you have?
Yeah, I actually pulled something from the scene I mentioned with Eddie standing up to his mother. It's just a really small piece of dialogue, but I really love it. So Sonia is asking him, "Did you know it was just water?" Talking about his medicine. And then, he says that to his mom. And then he says, "Because if you did," Eddie said, still frowning, "if you did know, I'd want to know why. I can figure some things out, but not why my mom would want me to think water was medicine, or that I had asthma here," he pointed at his chest. When Mr. Keene says, "I only have it up here," and pointing to his head. I just really love the dialogue there. I think King, every now and then he might fall into kids being somewhat precocious, but I like seeing Eddie being a little man right there and sticking it to the man too. So yeah, that's kind of the epitome of why I love that scene.
We talked a little bit earlier about how King can maybe kind of border on the saccharine, but I think this actually does read really well. This is about friendship. After Eddie's arm is broken, he's in the hospital room, and he thinks, these were his friends, and his mother was wrong. They weren't bad friends. Maybe, he thought, there aren't any such thing as good friends or bad friends. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were just friends, people who stand by you when you're hurt and who help you feel not so lonely. Maybe they're always worth being scared for and hoping for and living for. Maybe worth dying for, too, if that's what it has to be. No good friends, no bad friends, only people you want, need to be with, people who build their houses in your heart.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great.
That was my next one.
Oh, yeah.
We have literally, I've had the same ones too, which I think just speaks to how
powerful these are.
How powerful those sections are. I'll say that I have one from the rock fight, because the rock fight, I love so many sections, but man, it's like, this was such I think you used the phrase like fist pumping moment. It's such a fist pumping section for me, because he really allows a lot of the losers to get one up on the bullies. Yeah. And that's so satisfying when it's done well. And I love this one with Ben, because we literally watch Henry carve an H into Ben's stomach. So it's like, just this section here I love. Bellowing, Ben ran for Henry Bowers, who looked around in time to see him coming, but not in time to sidestep. Henry was off balance. Ben was 150, trying for 160. The result was no contest. Henry did not go sprawling, but flying. He landed on his back and skidded. Ben ran toward him again and was only vaguely aware of a warm, blooming pain in his ear as Belch Huggins nailed him with a rock roughly the size of a golf ball. Henry was getting groggily to his knees as Ben reached him and kicked him hard. His sneakered foot connecting solidly with Henry's left hip. Henry rolled over heavily on his back. His eyes blazed up at Ben. And that's where I stopped it, but it's like just the satisfaction of that moment. And he really captures sort of the adrenaline of it too. Like, there's a great section where it's almost like a Terminator kind of moment. Bill is like basically storming Victor, and Victor is just throwing rocks at his chest, and they're just like bouncing off of him.
Superman.
Yeah. And he's like, and he's basically just like, "No, you fucked up, bro." It's like Hulk Hogan, I love it. It's such cool shit. So I love so much of that rock fight, but those moments I think is where they really kind of, physically dominate the people who like make their lives hell. Is a very, cathartic and powerful experience. So, any others for you guys?
I'm getting hungry, but maybe we don't have to yet.
Beep Danny, because I've got some more from Eddie Spaghetti. Maybe that's the food you were thinking of. Eddie Spaghetti quotes.
I was thinking of something a little sweeter.
We're gonna get a little heavy before we get in the sweet. All right. So get that fork out and begin to twirl around your spaghetti, because I got another quote from my boy Eddie.
Bring it.
This is actually a really nice line too.
We just like ruined it with that
intro.
intro.
Really ruined the mood here. Wait for like some more of those beans to start making farts come around here. Eddie thinks about this. Poor little Eddie, you know. I think it was the first real pain I ever felt in my life, he would tell the others. It wasn't what I thought it would be at all. It didn't put an end to me as a person. I think it gave me a basis for comparison, finding out that you could still exist inside the pain in spite of the pain.
Yeah.
Get it, Eddie.
Go get it, spaghetti.
Deep.
Aisha, any more from you?
No, I'm gonna. I had a few, but like, they kind
We stole them all.
No, I was reflecting on something that like Mike's dad had said, and I was kind of looking at it in terms of not just like Mike being. It's right after he gets the shit kicked out of him by.
Oh God, that's his part. Yeah.
Yeah, and the dad is talking to the mom, and she's kind of upset why like he hasn't gone and done anything, and so basically. The father says it all comes back to, what was that? And the son hates the three of us because of them, and because his father has also told him that hating Nick is what men are supposed to do. I'm not gonna say it this time, you guys. It all comes back to that. I can't change the fact that our son is a Negro any more than I can sit here and tell you that Henry Bowers is going to be the last one to take after him because his skin's brown. He's going to have to deal with it all the rest of his life, and as I have dealt with it and you have dealt with it. Why? And then he goes into some examples. But it's kind of like, I took that not just in the sense of like him being brown, having to deal with that as an African American, but also like them being losers and like they're going to be picked on, taken or advantage of, or like bullied because they're different. And like they'll, like you were saying earlier, your father kind of said that to you, like people are gonna bully you. And I'm kind of diverting a little bit from what your dad said in the sense of like people are gonna bully you and you're gonna have to find a way to deal with it. You hope that you have friends who are there with you to make it a little bit easier. But like fact of life is people are going to be shitty to you. And like I kind of took that not just in the sense of like what exactly is paid word for word, but also in the grander sense of like the losers. Even like as adults, they're getting kind of shit on even though they have like these great executive roles and power. Like Bev, Eddie still has his wife who's like his domineering mother. You know, they all have their thing still bullying them in a sense. Yeah,
definitely.
It's good stuff.
That's interesting. That's a lot of spaghetti, but I saved a little room for dessert.
You know what?
I want my sweets.
Little Danny wants his sweeties.
Danny wants his sweeties, and I think that you know what that means. The oven is dinging. The pound cake is ready. Let's go get some pound cake.
All you've been taught, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin.
Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven.
He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mom.
Cut a slice.
Gross.
All right, welcome to Pound Cake.
Pound Cake for four? Anybody?
Yes. I've got a few. I'm going to kick things off. This is actually, and the funny thing is, I was like, I swear I wrote something down for Mike and the Parade. I actually have Mike and the Parade and Pound Cake, but it's not because I don't love the section. I do love the section. It was just, it was a similar situation where I had one last episode where there was some good writing, and then King just like added right at the end of some good writing, like, and then he smashed his balls. You know? Yeah, it's like, so I have one here where it's like, Mike is in the thing and he sees Pennywise and he says, he remembered how the flesh of his testicles had begun to crawl, how his bowels had suddenly felt all loose and hot, as if he might suddenly drop a casual load of shit in his pants. But it's like, it's not even the shit in his pants. It's the fact that it's casual.
Like, there's no way it could be casual.
And then I just start thinking
about
casual
Fridays and there's casual shitting your pants. I mean,
it's the idea of casually shitting is very funny to me.
Yeah.
I just shit.
And
I feel like I would liken that to like, you know, you wake up, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm all right, I'm just gonna go.
You're seeing a clown and you're marching in a parade. There's nothing casual about that.
What if Kieran abnormally shit his pants? Off the cuff shit his pants.
Just the phrase "casual" is what made that whole thing. I absolutely loved it. What slice of pound cake do you have?
I'm gonna read Edgar Thorogood but I can't do a good Maine accent.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to do like, imagine if he was a prospector in the gold rush or something like that.
That'll work.
So here we go. He explains his sexual exploits to Mike Hanlon. I only realized after I spit my spunk in her that she was laying a pool of jism, maybe an inch deep. Stuff had just about got the jelly. Girl, I says, ain't you never care for yourself? She looks down and says, I'll put on a new sheet if you want to go again. There's 2 in the cupboard down the hall, I think. I know pretty much what I'm in. I know pretty much what I'm in until 9 or 10. But by midnight, my cunt's so numb, it might as well be in Ellsworth. That was a combination of every European dialect.
I loved it.
And the South.
No, I had that too because just the concept of stuff had just about gone to jelly is one of the most disgusting sentences.
I had to read that 3 times to make sure
to make sure you fully got it.
What is a cupboard? Cupboard. Okay, yeah.
I wasn't concerned about the cupboard. I was thinking about jizz turning into jelly.
Yeah.
Oh, no, well, obviously.
I couldn't so much of it that there's like an extra layer. Like, come on.
Gross.
Christ,
Seriously, it's just like, tone it down, Stevie. That's a bit
stuff.
much. Dan, what do you got?
All right. If it's okay, here, let me readjust my reading light. Here we go. I'm going to read for a little
Dan's
bit.
like putting his glasses on.
Jerry,
I'm going to read for a little bit just because I think you need to read like the whole shebang for it to get funny.
Bring it.
And it's, there's a lot of pound cake to be had with Patrick Hockstetter and the jerking off and whatnot, and that's all valid. But I'm focused on beans. So here we go.
Specifically Davenport?
Yeah, the Davenport beans. Okay. Henry knew what resulted from consuming large amounts of baked beans. The result was perhaps best expressed in a little ditty he had learned at his father's knee when he was still in short pants. Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot.
King's
The
Dominion.
more you toot, the better you feel. Then you're ready for another meal. And then they talk about Rita. I'll keep reading that because that's pound cake. Rita Davenport and his father had been courting for nearly 8 years. She was fat, 40, and usually can't get there. She was fat, 40, and usually filthy. Henry supposed that Rena and his father sometimes fucked, although he could not imagine anyone squashing his body down on Rita Davenport.
Oh.
And then we hear how she makes beans. Rena's beans were her pride. She soaked them Saturday nights and baked them over a slow fire all day Sunday. Henry supposed they were okay. They were something to shovel into your mouth and chew up anyway. But after 8 years, anything lost its charm. All right, and then let me skip a little bit. The three that
what if this chapter is just called Davenport's Beans, chapter 5?
When she turned up Sunday evenings in her old green DeSoto, a naked rubber baby doll hung from the rearview mirror, looking like the world's youngest lynch mob victim. She usually had the Bowers's beans steaming on the seat beside her in a 12-gallon galvanized steel pail. The 3 of them would eat the beans that night. Rena raving about her own cooking all the while. Crazy Butch Bowers grunting and mopping up bean juice with a piece of Sunny Boy bread, or simply telling her to shut up if there was a ball game on the radio. Henry just eating, staring out the window, thinking his own thoughts. It was over a plate of Sunday night beans that he had conceived the idea of poisoning Mike Hanlon's dog, which that's sad. And Butch would reheat a mess of them the next night. On Tuesdays, we're getting like scheduling. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we'd take a Tupperware box full of them to school. By Thursday or Friday, neither Henry nor his father could eat anymore. The house's 2 bedrooms would smell of stale farts in spite of the open windows. Butch would take the remains and mix them into the other slops and feed them to Bip and Bop, the Bowers' 2 pigs. Rena would like as not show up the following Sunday with another steaming pail, and the cycle would start all over again.
This is gotta be Coke, like coked out King. Oh my god, this is like
the reason I like that passage is because like I'm fine with them mentioning beans, and it's the source of the farts they're lighting, and it inspires Henry to kill the dog, so it does have some plot significance. But the amount of detail he goes into about beans, it reminds me of in Waiting for Guffman, when the narrator is just like, "Ooh, beans!"
I know, I love it. Big fat hot juicy beans. Well, there's then I just whenever I think beans, I think Billy Madison when he's like, "Hey, Mister, guess what I had for breakfast? Beans," and then he makes farting noises. It's so fucking funny.
Anyway, sorry. Thank you for indulging me because it just goes on so long, and you're like, why are you talking about beans so much? And the fact that he has to do the whole beans, the musical fruit, which we already know, like everyone in the world knows that rhyme. Like, why do you have to spell that out for us?
How many
anyway,
of us started singing it?
I've got no more pound cake. That's all the bean cake I've got.
Oh man! Somebody wants to go next about bean. Anybody have any more bean comments? I got a great bean bit.
I don't have bean content. I would love your bean content.
Yes,
Can I? This is a bit and a half by King here.
Bring it.
This is such a joke. I can't believe this should not. I can't believe this didn't make its way into the movies. An otherwise terrific moment in the book, obviously, is the chase when Henry and the bullies are chasing after Mike. You know, it's intense, right? But right before all that happens, do we know what triggers Mike into understanding that there are people following him?
Oh, does somebody fart?
Farts, yeah.
They were 25 yards behind Mike and Henry, and Henry was just opening his mouth to give the order to charge when Moose Sadler set off the first firecracker of the day. Moose had eaten 3 plates of baked beans the night before, and the fart was almost as loud as a shotgun blast. He makes like a freeze frame, like, get him!
That is hilarious.
A shotgun blast.
I have a
firecracker of the day.
I have a similar one. I mean, well, it's not bean related. Well, kind of. It's when they're lighting farts, and I just loved the way this was phrased. So Bev is watching, and she goes, Belch Huggins had his back to her. She observed the fact that Belch had an extremely large, extremely hairy ass, and half hysterical giggles suddenly bubbled up her throat like the head on a glass of ginger ale. I just love that because it's just extremely large, extremely hairy ass.
No flowery language from Belch's butt.
God.
Aisha, do you have any
no poetry for Belch's ass? Oh God, I'm dying. Sorry.
Yes.
What is? Sorry, go ahead, Aisha. Sorry.
I want to hear what you have to say.
What were you going to say, Dan?
I was just going to say, it's funny how this is actually one of the most sexual chapters of the book, but the sexual stuff is all kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it's not funny. There's something funny about any of the sexual stuff.
But all the pancake is coming from all these like asses and farts and beans. It's amazing. Anyway, sorry.
One of the things I had was when they're describing Patrick, and it's from the view from one of his teachers, Mrs. Douglas. And so he says, and Mrs. Douglas had discovered it was best to keep him away from the girls because of his Roman hands and Russian fingers. What does that mean?
Russian fingers? Is that what it is?
Russian, like the country.
Yeah.
Like,
what does that mean?
I think it's like your hands are roaming and like, oh, my fingers are rushing in, right?
Well, that's what Dan's teachers would tell him. That's what Dan's teachers would tell him back in elementary school. Oh, look, Danny's at it again.
Oh my God.
My other one
bring it.
was going back to our best friend Edgar.
Yes.
Oh, Edgar.
Let's see, what was it? Page 883 for my edition. And it was when they were talking about kind of like the changeover of old Derry until new. So what's left of their supremacy 70-some years after Egbert Thorogood spent his love with a dollar whore in a spermy Baker Street bed.
Spermy.
Spent his love. First of all, like, why are we
spent his love? Oh my God.
He always uses love and strength, the word love in odd ways throughout his whole.
I need to use spermy as an adjective more.
I'll always remember after in the stand.
Sorry, Dan.
No. Whenever he would describe, there's a part where he's talking about Fran and Stu's night, and it just says after love.
Yeah. Or maybe they meant like after watching Netflix's series Love.
Yeah. I have one last one here, and it relates to the way that King writes Beverly, which just kind of, again, it's very eye-rolly, but this one was especially much, and I had to put it in pound cake. She was standing fully upright, her head cocked to the left, her eyes wide, her hair done in braids that had been tied off with 2 small red velvet bows which she had bought in dailies for a dime. Her posture was one of total attention and concentration. It was feline, lynx-like. She had shifted forward on her left foot, her body half turned as if to go after Patrick, and the legs of her faded shorts had pulled up enough to show the edging on her yellow cotton panties.
That's what I was talking about.
Below them, her legs were already smoothly muscled, beautiful in spite of the scabs, bruises, and smutches of dirt.
Smudges.
I'm watching a dirty Discovery.
I know, and she's 11. Stop it,
Right.
Stephen.
And then Moose Sadler set off the first firecracker of the day.
Feline, lynx-like.
Feline. It's like ASMR. Feline.
Yes.
Lynx-like.
So many things. And then when he talks about her shirt being open and like, I'm
Yes.
like, if she's clutched it closed, we're not seeing any breasts. Like, why do we keep?
It's so weird. So that's all the pound cake that I had. I'm stuffed. Dan, any more for you, or are you stiff with beans?
No, I'm stiff with beans and also stuffed with beans too. So,
Davenport's finest.
This was maybe the spermiest pound cake we've ever done.
I feel like I'm laying in an inch of whatever the hell it is.
Of jelly.
Brush my teeth.
Jelly jizz. Jelly jizz is a new flavor from Smucker's, by the way.
Oh my God, we are moving on to, we need to hustle our ass out of Pound Cake and out of the kitchen and into King's Dominion.
There's another world out there.
I know there is.
Here we are in King's Dominion, yet the scent of Pound Cake lingers. No, I'm just kidding.
The scent.
I actually didn't have a lot here.
Not a lot.
Yeah. The only one I had was...
Actually, I think Justin and I have the same one that has to do with beans.
Oh, well, why don't you guys do it? Bring it.
You do it, Justin.
Of course, beans, a musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you eat too. That's, of course, from one of the first chapters of The Gunslinger.
Yep.
It's true.
It is. No, it's true. Yeah. The Raven says it, right?
Yes.
Isn't the Raven says it.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool, guys.
Radical.
Way to make some shit up.
Kanye.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I had there's a lot of mentions to Haven in this.
Yeah.
But there's a specific mention to Haven's Big Engine Woods. And Big Engine Woods is where Bobby at the beginning of Tommyknockers discovers the piece of metal protruding from the ground that ends up being a very important part of the Tommyknockers, and it is in Big Engine Woods. So that was literally the only one I had.
I've got something
I
else.
also, I was just semi-joking. Those leeches, are those the leeches from The Body? Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Probably not.
Who knows?
Probably not. But,
Probably the same ones.
Bill calls Pennywise a whoremaster, which King loves to use that word, whoremaster. He's used it before. I thought that was pretty funny. That's more of just like a kingism as opposed to a true relation. There is something I absolutely have to mention here, though.
Yeah.
And I think actually you mentioned it way earlier on. I don't know if we had recorded yet or if it was the beginning of the podcast 9 hours ago. This is after Eddie's arm breaks. He says, he had a chance to admire the way the July sun glinted off the flecks of mica in that old sidewalk. He had a chance to note the remains of a very old hopscotch grid that had been done in pink chalk on that old sidewalk. Then, for just a moment, it swam and looked like something else. It looked like a turtle.
Turtles.
Yeah, the turtle. I'm telling you.
We'll be hearing some more of the turtle, I feel
we will.
later on.
I actually do have one more. I actually had this section in Cemetery because I get freaked out by architecture that on the inside, is different than it looks on the outside. That's always like a creepy trope to me. And so I loved the way Neibolt House, like even though it might have been a little gimmicky at times, the way that the rooms would sort of expand and the way the architecture didn't make sense with the way the house was structured. But the way it's phrased here felt very Dark Towery to me. So Ben shook his head. The voice was gone. That was an important thing, a good thing. Yet outside, he had understood. This house was a special place, a kind of station. One of the places in Derry, one of the many perhaps from which it was able to find its way into the overworld. There he's phrasing it as saying like Pennywise, this is his way into the world. But the idea of calling it a station and just the phrase that it's a special place. And the fact that, and he says the stinking rotted house where everything was somehow wrong. It wasn't just that it seemed too big. The angles were wrong, the perspective crazy. And I think it just reminds me of something like the club from The Breathing Method.
Yes.
Something
Storytelling Club.
Yeah, which was very much posited in The Breathing Method as kind of a dark tower sort of passage between worlds. Yeah, where are we? And so I think that I don't know if the Neibolt Street house is one of those kind of places, and I guess I found that very intriguing.
Yes.
So nothing definitive there, but something that at least struck me as very Kingian in terms of the larger universe.
Room 237.
I'll say that's a Room 237.
I have something here that's almost its own section. And I have to point it out.
Bring it on.
Because you know how I criticized King earlier?
Yes.
For blowing it with the old Steve McQueen TV series.
You're fired.
Well, I'm going to give him some credit here.
Okay.
The apocalyptic rock fight took place in either July 1st or July 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Butch Bowers, here's a quote from the book. Butch Bowers was settled in for the afternoon on the back porch, a quart milk bottle filled with exquisitely hard cider by his rocker, his Philco portable radio on the porch rail. Later that afternoon, the Red Sox would be playing the Washington Senators, a prospect that would give any man who was not crazy a bad case of cold chills. The Red Sox did indeed play the Senators that weekend. And the Red Sox lost the second game on the second. So that's actually good research there, Stephen King.
All right.
He's back in my good graces.
Comic book guy.
He gets his socks right.
When it comes to baseball, he ain't messing around.
Faithful. One might say he's faithful.
He's like Billy Crystal.
You went too far. Okay, that's all I've got.
Any other Dominion we got here?
I'm just looking forward to the part 5.
Yeah. We're heading there next week. Aisha,
I'm excited.
anything?
I don't have any King's Dominion. I'm like, this is like my weakest part. Guys.
Right. I know. I understand.
Sometimes I get it.
Dan, you're good.
I'm good. And just one more time, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
Being on the podcast. It's oh no, a firecracker just went off.
Just went off.
Moose.
No, so that's it for this episode. This was so fun. So much good stuff in this episode, in this section. Man, but things are going down next week. Next week we're doing part 5, The Ritual of Chud, and I'm not on the episode, but being somebody who's reading it and halfway through, god damn, it just moves.
Yes.
It's so good. It's so freaky. It's so good. And so I think that's going to be a must-listen episode. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. I'll be back for adaptations. Excited to be on again.
Oh, this is Dan's last book episode too.
But are you on the adaptations, Dan?
Yeah, I'm on adaptations,
cool.
I believe.
We'll welcome you back then. Aisha is going to be back next week, as well as Mel and Justo.
And Mako.
And your Melmac.
Melmac, the combo's back.
Hey, Patrick, stop torturing those cats. Leave them for me.
Give me the cats.
Alf, the cat's been in the family for a long time.
Please. Leave us with a question.
Yes,
please.
This is something like
so we can stop doing Alf quotes.
Yeah, I was going to cut that real short.
Mercifully.
Hey. My one question was, and it came at the very end of the interlude leading into the next chapter, or the last chapter. So basically they're talking about like it and how he's been here all this time and how he has this like developed this human emotion of revenge.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting for something that's supposed to be like an evil entity or like older than time and like not human or alien or whatever we decided to call it. And yet at the same time, it has these human emotions of fear and revenge. And is that stemming from the being on like Earth with people for so long? It's kind of adopted some of these traits, or so that was just a question or a thought I had that I wanted to leave.
I think that's something good to leave to the whole audience as we go into this last part.
That's a really good question.
You're onto something here.
Yeah. Ooh. Very cool. Keep that in mind. Chew on that a little bit until we're back next week. And yeah, this has been a blast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And long days.
And pleasant nights.
Pleasant nights, baby.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. Tune in next week. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.